In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Across 1,000,000 worlds, beneath alien suns, and within the cold void between stars, humanity fights for its very survival. The Imperium of man stands as a beacon against the encroaching darkness, and at the forefront of this endless war march the Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes, the Emperor's Angels of Death. These warriors are far more than human. They are living weapons, forged from gene seed and faith, clad in power armor that can withstand the fury of alien weaponry, wielding bolt guns that spit explosive death with every trigger pull. Each Space Marine is worth 100 ordinary soldiers, their reflexes superhuman, their strength legendary, their devotion absolute. They know no fear. They know no mercy. They are the Emperor's wrath made manifest. But among even these superhuman warriors, some names echo louder than others through the halls of history. Some deeds shine brighter in the annals of war. Some champions stand taller, their legends carved not in stone, but in the very fabric of the Imperium itself. These are the warriors who have transcended their already legendary status to become something more, icons of hope in a galaxy that offers precious little of it, bulwarks against despair when all seems lost. Today, we embark on a journey through 10,000 years of warfare to examine the most legendary Space Marines in Warhammer 40,000 history. We will walk battlefields soaked in the blood of countless enemies. We will stand beside warriors who have faced down demon primarchs and Xenos horrors beyond imagining. We will explore what it truly means to be legendary in a universe where heroes are forged in the crucible of endless war. But what makes a Space Marine legendary? Is it longevity, the ability to survive when all others have fallen? Is it tactical brilliance, the capacity to snatch victory from the jaws of certain defeat? Is it personal combat prowess, the skill to best any opponent in single combat? Is it the ability to inspire others, to make ordinary humans fight like heroes and fellow Space Marines push beyond their already incredible limits? The answer, perhaps, is all of these things and more. A legendary Space Marine is one whose name is spoken with reverence by friend and fear by foe. They are warriors whose deeds are recounted in the chapter halls, whose strategies are studied by chapter masters, whose personal example lifts the hearts of billions. They are the embodiment of what the Emperor intended when he created the Adeptus Astartes, the very best of an already superhuman brotherhood. As we examine these legendary warriors, we will discover that greatness comes in many forms. Some legends are born from millennia of unbroken service, their experience accumulated over centuries of warfare. Others achieve legendary status through a single, defining moment that changes the course of history. Some inspire through tactical genius, others through personal valor, still others through their unwavering faith in the Emperor and the Imperium. The Space Marines we will discuss have fought in wars that would break lesser beings. They have stood their ground when retreat was the only sensible option. They have made impossible choices, bearing burdens that would crush ordinary mortals. They have watched brothers fall, seen chapters decimated, witnessed the slow decay of the Imperium they were created to protect. Yet they endure, driven by duty, sustained by faith, made unbreakable by their commitment to humanity's survival. In a universe where the average Imperial citizen lives a life of grinding toil in darkness, where knowledge of the wider galaxy is suppressed, where hope is a dangerous commodity, these legendary Space Marines serve a vital purpose. They are living proof that humanity can prevail. They are symbols that transcend their physical forms, becoming ideas, inspirations, rallying points for an Imperium that desperately needs heroes. So join me as we delve into the legends of the greatest warriors the Imperium has ever known. We will examine their origins, trace their rise to prominence, analyze their greatest victories, and understand the price they have paid for their legendary status. We will discover why their names are remembered when countless others have been forgotten. why their deeds continue to inspire long after the battles themselves have passed into history. The journey begins now, through the blood-soaked annals of the 41st millennium, into the heart of what makes a Space Marine truly legendary. Commander Dante, the Lord of Angels, who defies time. In the fortress monastery of the Blood Angels, deep within the sacred halls where the sons of Sanguinius gather, there stands a figure whose presence commands immediate reverence. Clad in ornate golden armor that catches the light like captured sunlight, wearing a death mask modeled after the face of his fallen primarch, Commander Dante is a vision of angelic majesty and terrible purpose. He is the chapter master of the Blood Angels, Lord Regent of Imperium Nihilus, and bearer of a burden that would break lesser beings. He is the oldest living Space Marine currently in active service, having served the Emperor for over 1,500 years. Let that sink in for a moment. 1,500 years. To put this in perspective, Dante has been fighting the Emperor's wars since before the fall of Rome would seem recent to a modern historian. He has witnessed the rise and fall of countless imperial worlds. He has seen entire campaigns come and go, watched brothers he trained with centuries ago fall in battle, presided over the recruitment of generation after generation of new Blood Angels. The weight of those years, the accumulated grief of so much loss, would crush a normal human mind. Even for a Space Marine, engineered to endure the unendurable, such a span of time tests the very limits of sanity and purpose. Dante's story begins not in glory, but in misery. He was born Luis Dante on Baal Secundus, the radiation-scarred moon orbiting the Blood Angels' home world. This was no paradise, no shining jewel of civilization. Baal Secundus was a wasteland, its surface blasted by ancient atomic wars, its population reduced to nomadic tribes, scraping out a brutal existence from the poisoned earth. Young Luis grew up stunted by malnutrition and radiation exposure, his physical development hampered by the harsh environment that was all he had ever known. His family belonged to one of the salt clans, nomadic peoples who traveled the dried seabeds harvesting salt to trade at the few permanent settlements that dotted the wasteland. It was a hard life, where death from thirst, radiation sickness, or predator attack was an ever-present possibility. Luis knew hunger as an intimate companion, understood from his earliest memories that survival demanded constant vigilance and unrelenting effort. His mother died giving birth to a stillborn brother, leaving him to be raised by his father Arias, a hard but loving man who taught him the bitter lessons necessary to survive on Baal Secundus. Every year, the Blood Angels descended from their orbital fortress to hold trials among the tribes of Baal and its moons. Young men would gather at the place of challenge, competing for the honor and terror of being chosen to become Space Marines. Most who undertook the trials died. The few who survived would be transformed into something greater than human, angels of death who would leave their mortal lives behind forever. It was the only escape from the grinding poverty of Baal Secundus, the only path to something more than a short, brutal life, scratching survival from poisoned earth. When Luis's turn came to face the trials, he showed no particular promise. He was small, weakened by years of insufficient food and radiation exposure, seemingly destined to fail where stronger candidates might succeed. But he possessed something that raw physical prowess could not match, an indomitable will, a refusal to yield that burned in him like a flame that would not be extinguished. Where others fell to exhaustion, he pushed forward. Where others succumbed to fear, he found courage. Where others accepted death, he clung to life with stubborn determination. He survived. Against all odds, the weak boy from the Salt Flats endured trials that killed stronger candidates. He was inducted into the Blood Angels as an aspirant, beginning the long and agonizing process of transformation that would make him into a Space Marine. The implantation of gene seed organs, the hypno-indoctrination, the training in warfare and tactics, all of it nearly killed him multiple times. During his transformation, After drinking the blood synthesized from the gene seed of Sanguinius, Luis fell into a coma that lasted a full year, crying out the name of his dead mother in his unconscious torment. When he finally awoke, he was no longer the malnourished boy from Baal Secundus. He was a space marine of the Blood Angels, a warrior whose strength and speed would put him far beyond normal human capacity, whose skill with weapons would be honed to lethal perfection, whose devotion to the Emperor and his chapter would define every moment of his existence. He took the name Dante, leaving Luis behind with his mortal life, and began his service to the chapter. Dante's rise through the ranks was not meteoric. He did not distinguish himself immediately with some spectacular feat of arms. Instead, he advanced steadily, proving himself reliable, capable, and increasingly skilled with each engagement. He fought as a scout, learning the arts of stealth and reconnaissance. He served in tactical squads, mastering the standard patterns of Space Marine warfare. He joined the assault squads, donning a jump pack and taking to the skies to rain death upon the Emperor's enemies from above. His skill with the blade became apparent early. Dante possessed a natural gift for swordsmanship that training only refined, turning him into a deadly opponent in close combat. He learned to read the flow of battle, to anticipate his enemy's moves, to strike with precision that wasted no motion and left no opening. His tactical acumen also became evident, his ability to assess situations quickly and make decisions that saved lives and won battles, earning him recognition from his superiors. Sergeant, then lieutenant, then captain, Dante climbed the ranks of the Blood Angels over decades of service, each promotion earned through blood and valor. He fought on countless worlds against every enemy the Imperium faced. Orcs, whose savage ferocity tested even Space Marine courage. Eldar, whose alien grace and advanced technology made them deadly foes. Chaos cultists, whose corruption had to be burned out with bolt and flame. Tyranids, those horror from beyond the galaxy, whose hunger threatened to consume all life. In each engagement, Dante proved himself worthy of the golden armor he wore, worthy of being called a son of Sanguinius. But Dante's greatest test came not from external enemies, but from the curse that afflicted all Blood Angels, the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. Since the death of their Primarch Sanguinius, at the hands of the arch-traitor Horus during the Horus Heresy, all Blood Angels carried within them a terrible flaw. Some, overcome by the Black Rage, relived their Primarch's final moments again and again, lost to madness and bloodlust, condemned to spend their final hours in the death company before dying in battle. Others struggled with the Red Thirst, a vampiric hunger for blood that threatened to reduce them to monsters. Dante felt these curses as acutely as any of his brothers. The rage that simmered beneath his disciplined exterior, the thirst that whispered dark promises. These were constant companions, constant threats to everything he had become. But where others succumbed, Dante endured. He mastered the darkness within him through sheer force of will, channeling the fury into controlled aggression on the battlefield, sublimating the thirst into devotion to duty. It was this mastery, this demonstration of supreme self-control, that marked him as exceptional even among the Blood Angels. When the previous chapter master fell in battle, the choice of successor was clear. Dante was appointed chapter master of the Blood Angels, a position of supreme honor and crushing responsibility. He would lead his entire chapter, make decisions that would determine the fates of thousands of his brothers, carry the weight of the Blood Angels' 10,000-year history on his shoulders. He was fitted with the death mask of Sanguinius, that ancient relic said to have been shaped to match the features of the Primarch at the moment of his death, and he took up the legendary weapons that were his by right, the Axe Mortalis and the Perdition Pistol. As chapter master, Dante's legend truly began to grow. He led the Blood Angels through campaign after campaign, his tactical brilliance becoming legendary throughout the Imperium. At the Second War for Armageddon, when the Orc warlord, Gazkul Thraka, threatened to overrun that vital hive world, Dante commanded not just the Blood Angels, but also contingents from the Salamanders and Ultramarines. The chapter masters of those august chapters, Tushan and Marneus Calgar, deferred to Dante's command, recognizing in him a tactical genius and a warrior of unparalleled experience. The defense of Armageddon showcased everything that made Dante legendary. He orchestrated a defense that stretched across an entire world, coordinating millions of Imperial Guard soldiers, thousands of Space Marines, and entire armored regiments in a campaign that lasted for months. He led from the front when inspiration was needed, appearing on the walls of besieged hives like an avenging angel to rally defenders who had lost hope. He fought alongside his brothers, his axe mortalis cleaving through orc bosses and his jump pack carrying him into the heart of enemy formations. At Hive Acheron, Dante spearheaded a counterattack that shattered an orc assault just as the defenses were on the verge of collapse. At Hive Tartarus, he led a massive drop pod assault that killed fully half the attacking orc army and drove the survivors back into the wastes. His presence on the battlefield was worth entire companies of soldiers, not just for his personal prowess, but for the effect he had on those around him. Imperial Guard soldiers, who had never seen a Space Marine before, fought with renewed vigor when they saw the Golden Angel descending from the sky. Blood Angels who were flagging from exhaustion found new strength when their chapter master fought beside them. The Imperium won the Second War for Armageddon, and Dante's role in that victory was undeniable. His name became legendary, not just among the Blood Angels, but across the Imperium. To the common citizens of Armageddon and countless other worlds, he became a symbol of hope, the golden warrior who descended in humanity's darkest hour to turn the tide of battle. Statues were raised in his honor. Prayers were offered in his name. Children were taught tales of his heroism. The legend of Commander Dante had transcended the confines of his chapter to become something greater. But with each passing year, each passing century, the burden grew heavier. Dante watched brothers he had known for centuries fall in battle. He presided over funeral rites for warriors he had personally trained. He saw the Imperium slowly declining, beset on all sides by enemies, losing ground despite the sacrifices of its defenders. The weight of leadership, combined with the accumulated grief of so much loss, began to wear even on his superhuman constitution. In the quiet moments between battles, Dante began to long for death, not from cowardice or despair, but from simple exhaustion. He had served for over a millennium, longer than any chapter master save the entombed ancients who slumbered between battles in their dreadnought sarcophagi. He felt himself becoming detached from his brothers, the gulf of years separating him from those he commanded. The faces of friends long dead haunted his memories. The burden of duty had become almost unbearable. Yet still he served. A prophecy had been made centuries before, speaking of a golden warrior who would stand at the emperor's side in the Imperium's darkest hour. Dante believed himself to be that warrior, and this belief sustained him when nothing else could. He could not die, could not lay down his burden, because the Imperium still needed him. The prophesied hour had not yet come, so he endured, day after day, year after year, century after century, until 1,500 years had passed, and he had become something almost mythical, even among the legendary Space Marines. The greatest test of Dante's leadership came during the devastation of Baal. The Tyrannid Hive fleet Leviathan, one of the largest Xenos invasions the Imperium had ever faced, descended upon the Blood Angels' home system with apocalyptic fury. Billions of alien organisms, from the smallest gene stealers to massive biotitans that towered over buildings, swarmed across Bel and its moons. The Blood Angels and their successor chapters gathered in defense of their ancestral home, but they were vastly outnumbered and slowly being overwhelmed. Dante coordinated a defense that should have been impossible. He marshaled every resource available, deployed his forces with perfect tactical precision, and led countless counterattacks personally. He fought on the walls of the fortress monastery itself when the Tyranids breached the defenses. He dueled a swarm lord, one of the hive mind's most perfect killing machines, and through skill and determination managed to drive it back. For weeks, the battle raged, and for weeks, Dante refused to yield even an inch of ground that could be held. The situation grew desperate. Casualties mounted, ammunition ran low. The Tyranids kept coming in endless waves, seemingly infinite in number. Dante prepared for a final stand, ready to sell his life and the lives of his chapter dearly in defense of their home. This was to be his prophesied end, he believed, the moment when the Golden Warrior would finally be allowed to rest. But salvation came from an unexpected source. Robert Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, had been resurrected after 10,000 years in stasis. He led a crusade across the galaxy to reinforce beleaguered Imperial worlds, and he arrived at Baal with an army of the new Primaris Space Marines, just as the Blood Angels were on the verge of annihilation. The tide of battle turned. The Tyranids were driven back. Baal was saved. When Dante met Guilliman, the ancient chapter master knelt before the returned Primarch, expecting to be relieved of his command for the failures that had led to such devastating losses. Instead, Guilliman recognized in Dante a warrior of supreme capability and unshakable loyalty. The Primarch appointed Dante as Lord Regent of Imperium Nihilus, the dark half of the galaxy cut off by the Great Rift. It was a promotion that added even more responsibility to Dante's already crushing burden, but it was also recognition of his legendary status, acknowledgement that he was one of the greatest warriors and leaders the Imperium possessed. The arrival of the Primaris Marines presented Dante with another difficult choice. These new Space Marines were larger, stronger, and more resilient than traditional Astartes. Some saw them as replacements, a new generation that would make the old obsolete. The integration of Primaris Marines into existing chapters was proceeding unevenly, with some accepting them and others viewing them with suspicion. Dante, always forward-thinking despite his age, underwent the Rubicon Primaris, the dangerous surgery that would transform him from a traditional Space Marine into a Primaris warrior. The surgery nearly killed him. His already ancient body was pushed to its absolute limits by the procedure. He died on the operating table and had to be revived, teetering on the brink of oblivion before being pulled back. But he survived, emerging larger and more powerful than before, his already legendary capabilities enhanced. More importantly, his willingness to undergo the procedure himself sent a clear message to his chapter and to the wider Imperium. Change was necessary, adaptation was survival, and even legends could evolve. Today, Commander Dante continues his eternal vigil. He has served longer than almost any other Space Marine in history. He has fought in more battles than most chapters wage in centuries. His personal kill count is beyond calculation. His list of victories would fill volumes. His tactical decisions have saved billions of lives. The death mask of Sanguinius he wears has become one of the most recognizable symbols in the entire Imperium. Its golden features striking terror into the hearts of enemies and inspiring hope in allies. But Dante remains, at his core, the boy from Baal Secundus who refused to give up. The will that carried him through the trials, that sustained him through transformation, that drove him up through the ranks, that has kept him fighting for 15 centuries, that will remain unbroken. He is tired, yes. He longs for rest, yes. He has earned his peace 1,000 times over. But he endures because the Imperium needs him, because his brothers look to him for leadership, because somewhere in the dark future, his prophesied moment may yet come. Commander Dante stands as proof that legends are not born, but made through endless sacrifice, unwavering duty, and a refusal to yield no matter how heavy the burden becomes. He is the Lord of Angels, the Golden Warrior, and his legend continues to grow with each passing year of his impossibly long service. Bjorn the Fell-Handed, the last link to a legendary age, deep in the heart of the Fang, the fortress monastery of the Space Wolves that is carved into the very rock of Fenris, there exists a chamber unlike any other. Here, in the cold darkness, stand rows of sarcophagi, each one housing a warrior who has transcended death through the miracle and curse of Dreadnought Interment. These are the venerable ancients of the Space Wolves, warriors so valued that their chapter refused to let them die, instead sealing their broken bodies within walking tombs of ceramite and adamantium, so they could continue to fight. Among these ancient warriors stands one who is older than all the rest, older than perhaps any other loyalist space marine still drawing breath in the 41st millennium. His sarcophagus is covered in wolf pelts and runes of power, its armored form bearing the scars of 10,000 years of warfare. His weapons have claimed more lives than some chapters have killed in their entire existence. His name is spoken with awe, even by those who never knew the age he represents. He is Bjorn the Fell-Handed, and he is the last surviving space marine who walked beside the Emperor himself during the Great Crusade. Let that extraordinary fact settle in your mind. Bjorn fought in the Great Crusade, that legendary 200-year campaign when the Emperor and his 20 Primarch sons united humanity beneath the banner of the Imperium. He stood on battlefields before the Horus heresy tore the galaxy apart, when the Space Marine legions numbered in the hundreds of thousands, when the dream of a united humanity seemed achievable. He was there when everything fell apart, when brother turned against brother, in the most catastrophic civil war the galaxy had ever seen. He has endured for more than 10 millennia, sleeping between battles, awakened only in times of dire need, or to share his memories with younger generations who can scarcely imagine the era he represents. Bjorn's story begins during the closing stages of the Great Crusade. He was recruited from the fierce tribes of Fenris, his natural aggression and warrior's spirit marking him as ideal material for the Space Wolves Legion. The VI Legion, as they were known then, were the Emperor's executioners, the ones sent to prosecute wars that other legions found distasteful, the ones who would carry out the Emperor's judgment without hesitation or mercy. Under their Primarch, Leman Russ, they had gained a fearsome reputation as savage but supremely effective warriors. Young Bjorn was inducted into the ranks of the Space Wolves and began the transformation process that would make him into an Astartes. He survived the implantation of gene seed organs, endured the brutal training regimen, and emerged as a Space Marine of the CX Legion. His early service saw him fighting in the final years of the Great Crusade, when the Imperium was at its height, and it seemed that nothing could stop humanity's expansion across the stars. During this time, Bjorn had a fateful encounter with an off-world scholar named Caspar Horser. Bjorn had accidentally shot down Horser's aircraft during a training exercise, and he grudgingly rescued the scholar and 2 Fenrisian natives who were with him. One of those natives would eventually join the Space Wolves as 5th, and Horser himself would become the Skjald, the storyteller and historian of Bjorn's company. This encounter, seemingly minor at the time, would prove significant during the burning of Prospero, one of the most tragic events of the Horus heresy. Bjorn's skill as a warrior was evident from early in his career. He was a natural with weapons, particularly favoring a lightning claw, a power weapon shaped like a set of vicious talons that could tear through armor like paper. But it was his attitude that truly set him apart. Bjorn possessed a fierce, almost bitter determination. He was not one for grand speeches or displays of nobility. He was a warrior who understood war as ugly, brutal work that needed doing, and he approached it with grim professionalism rather than glory-seeking enthusiasm. He rose through the ranks to join Leman Russ's personal Wolf Guard, the elite warriors who served at the Primarch's side. This was an honor reserved for only the very best, the most skilled and most trusted. To be chosen for the Wolf Guard meant that the Primarch himself had recognized your worth, that you had proven yourself worthy to stand beside a son of the Emperor. Bjorn took this responsibility with characteristic seriousness, serving his Primarch with the same grim dedication he brought to everything. Then came the burning of Prospero, and everything changed. The Space Wolves were sent to the world of the Thousand Suns Legion, ostensibly to bring their Primarch Magnus the Red to Terra for judgment. But the mission went catastrophically wrong, devolving into a full-scale assault that saw the city of Tizca burned and the Thousand Suns Legion shattered. During this battle, Bjorn and his companions encountered a demon that had shaped itself to look like Horus Lupercal, the War Master who would soon betray the Emperor. The demon knew the true names of every space wolf it faced, and with that knowledge, it had power over them. It killed several of Bjorn's packmates, using their names to strike them down. But when it tried to claim power over Bjorn, it failed. The demon called out, "Bear," the rough translation of Bjorn's name in Low Gothic, but this was not his true name. His actual name was something the demon did not know, and so it had no power over him. In the fight that followed, the demon managed to corrupt Bjorn's left arm with warp fire. Caspar Horza, the Skjald, took up an axe and cut off Bjorn's arm below the elbow, saving his life, but leaving him maimed. This is how Bjorn earned the title Fell-Handed. The Old Norse word fell can mean several things. It can refer to a hide or pelt, but it can also mean fierce or savage. Bjorn initially resented the name, calling himself One-Handed instead. But over time, it stuck. When he was interred in a dreadnought after suffering mortal wounds in a later battle, the tech marines of the Space Wolves crafted for him a massive lightning claw to replace his lost hand, a weapon they called True Claw. With this weapon, Bjorn the Fell-Handed would go on to carve his legend across 10 millennia of warfare. The Horus Heresy tested the Space Wolves terribly. Like all loyalist legions, they fought against their former brothers who had turned traitor. The betrayal cut deep, the realization that those they had fought beside for decades had embraced chaos and turned against everything they had once defended. The Battle of the Alaxes. Nebula saw the Space Wolves ambushed by the Alpha Legion, nearly destroyed before Leman Russ led a desperate boarding action to turn the tide. Through all of this, Bjorn fought with fierce determination, his anger at the betrayal channeled into lethal effectiveness against the traitors. When the heresy finally ended with the Emperor's victory at the cost of his own near death and interment upon the Golden Throne, the Imperium was left shattered. Leman Russ, like his remaining loyalist brother Primarchs, struggled with the new reality. The dream of the Great Crusade was dead. The Emperor lay comatose on his throne. Half the Space Marine legions had turned traitor. The future looked dark and uncertain. Then, one night during a feast at the Fang, Leman Russ fell silent mid-speech. His eyes glazed over as if seeing a vision, and he called for his Wolfguard to attend him, all except Bjorn. Russ gave his closest companions instructions that he never shared with Bjorn, then left the Fang with his honor guard. He never returned. The Primarch of the Space Wolves simply disappeared into the void, leaving no explanation, no final words for the warrior who had served at his side through the darkest days of the Imperium's history. Bjorn was devastated. Russ had left him behind without explanation, without even a farewell. The sense of abandonment was crushing. But the chapter needed leadership, and so Bjorn took up the mantle of Great Wolf, the first chapter master of the Space Wolves, after the Primarch's departure. He led the chapter through the tumultuous years following the heresy, through the second founding when the legions were broken into smaller chapters, through the endless wars that consumed the 31st millennium. During one of these wars, Bjorn suffered wounds that should have killed him. His body was broken beyond what even the Space Wolves' wolf priests could heal. Faced with losing one of their greatest warriors, the chapter made the decision to inter him in a dreadnought. His ruined flesh was sealed within the armored sarcophagus, life support systems, and neural interfaces linking what remained of his body to the massive walking war machine that would become his new form. Being interred in a dreadnought is both salvation and curse. The warrior survives, yes, but at a terrible cost. They are sealed within a metal tomb, their consciousness connected to sensors and weapons rather than flesh and blood. They can no longer feel the wind on their face, or taste food, or experience the simple pleasures of embodied existence. They become weapons that can think, immortal but imprisoned, cursed to watch the centuries pass while sealed in adamantium and ceramite. For Bjorn, this imprisonment has lasted more than 10,000 years. The space wolves learned that waking him too often risked driving him mad or burning out the organic components that still sustained his consciousness. So they developed a careful protocol. Bjorn would be awakened only when the chapter faced a truly dire threat, or once every century so that he could share his memories of Leman Russ and the old days with the current generation of space wolves. These awakenings became legendary events. When Bjorn was roused from his sleep, every space wolf from the Great Wolf down to the newest Bloodclaw would gather to hear him speak. He would recount tales of the Primarch, keep alive the oral tradition of the chapter, and provide counsel based on his vast experience. His memories spanned the entire history of the Imperium, making him an invaluable strategic asset. He had fought in wars that were ancient history to everyone else, faced enemies that had been extinct for millennia, and his tactical database contained knowledge that had been lost to the rest of the Imperium. But Bjorn's age has also given him a unique perspective and a temperament that can charitably be described as difficult. He is not some reverent, noble ancient who speaks in wise platitudes. Bjorn is grumpy, sarcastic, and frequently profane. He has little patience for ceremony or formality. He's been awakened countless times over the centuries to recount the same stories, answer the same questions about Leman Russ, and fight in yet another war that probably could have been handled without him. There's a famous incident. During the Months of Shame, the conflict between the Space Wolves and the Inquisition following the First War for Armageddon. When the Inquisitor Kisnaros came to negotiate with the Space Wolves, he was granted an audience with Bjorn. The ancient dreadnought terrified the Inquisitor, who realized he was speaking with someone who had walked beside the Emperor himself. You walked in the age of the Emperor? Kisnaros asked in awe. Bjorn responded with characteristic bluntness. Walked, ran, pissed, and killed. I did it all. I met the Allfather, you know. Fought at his side more than once. I do believe he liked me. This irreverence masks a deep melancholy. Bjorn carries the weight of 10,000 years of memory. Everyone he knew during the Great Crusade is long dead. The galaxy he fought to build has decayed into something barely recognizable. The glorious dream of the Great Crusade has been replaced by the grinding nightmare of the 41st millennium. Every time he awakens, he finds the Imperium in worse shape than before, humanity beset by ever more threats, the light of hope growing dimmer. Yet Bjorn endures. His combat effectiveness has not diminished with age. If anything, his vast experience makes him even more dangerous. He has fought every enemy the Imperium has faced multiple times over. He knows their tactics, their weaknesses, and how to exploit them. His weapons, particularly the lightning claw called True Claw, have claimed more enemy lives than can be counted. Entire companies of enemies have fallen before him. He has dueled champion fighters from a dozen different species and emerged victorious every time. In battle, Bjorn is relentless. His dreadnought form lumbers forward with inexorable purpose, weapons blazing, True Claw tearing through anything that comes within reach. He cannot be intimidated because he has seen worse than whatever he currently faces. He cannot be demoralized because he has already survived 10 millennia of warfare. He is, in many ways, the ultimate expression of what a Space Marine can become. A warrior so dedicated to duty that even death cannot stop him, so valuable to his chapter that they will go to any length to preserve him, so experienced that his tactical knowledge is beyond price. Bjorn's legend extends far beyond the Space Wolves. Other chapters know of him, speak of him with awe and respect. To meet Bjorn is to stand before a living piece of history, a warrior who bridges the mythical past and the grim present. His existence proves that the legends are real, that the Great Crusade actually happened, that the Emperor truly walked among men. In an Imperium where so much history has been lost or distorted, where truth and myth blur together, Bjorn is an anchor to reality, a living testament to what was and what has been lost. The Space Wolves revere Bjorn almost as much as they revere their lost Primarch. His counsel is sought on matters of great importance. His combat prowess is deployed when the chapter faces enemies that require the attention of their most capable warrior. His memories are treasured as sacred relics, each story he tells preserved and passed down through generations. He is called by many titles: the Eldest, Trueclaw, the Revered One, Last of the Company of Russ, each one acknowledging different aspects of his legendary status. Perhaps most remarkably, Bjorn has maintained his sanity through all these millennia. Many dreadnoughts eventually succumb to madness, the isolation, an endless cycle of sleep and awakening eroding their minds until nothing remains but rage and confusion. But Bjorn's bitter determination, that same fierce will that made him a great warrior in life, has sustained him in his mechanical imprisonment. He has not gone mad, though perhaps his grumpiness and irreverence are their own form of coping mechanism, a way to maintain his identity in the face of 10,000 years of unchanging duty. Bjorn represents something unique in the Imperium: genuine continuity with its founding. He is not a legend passed down through stories, not a figure known only through fragmentary records. He is actually there, able to correct misconceptions, provide first-hand accounts, and embody the values of an age that most Imperial citizens cannot even imagine. When the Great Wolf makes a difficult decision, he can ask Bjorn, "What would Russ do?" and receive an answer from someone who actually knew the Primarch personally. The weight of being this living link to the past is immense. Bjorn carries the burden of memory, the knowledge of everything that has been lost, the comparison between the glory that was and the diminished state of the present. He has watched the Imperium slowly decline for 10 millennia, seen the Space Wolves chapter struggle with problems that would have been easily solved in the old days, witnessed the erosion of knowledge and capability across the entire Imperium. It would be enough to make anyone bitter. But Bjorn endures because that's what he has always done. Through the Great Crusade, through the heresy, through 10,000 years of war, he has simply kept fighting. Not because he expects victory anymore. 10 millennia have taught him that the war never ends. But because fighting is what he does, what he has always done, what he will continue to do until the very systems that sustain his ancient flesh finally fail, and even the Space Wolves' artificers cannot restore him. Bjorn the Fell-Handed stands as the ultimate embodiment of perseverance. He is proof that duty can sustain a warrior through literally anything, that the will to serve can transcend even the boundaries between life and death. He is the last living voice of the Imperium's greatest age, the final witness to the time when the Emperor walked among his sons, and the Great Crusade seemed destined to unite humanity beneath a golden age of prosperity. He is legend made manifest, 10,000 years of warfare compressed into a single walking war machine, and his name will be remembered as long as the Space Wolves endure. Sigismund, the eternal champion, whose blade never dulled in the sprawling hive cities of terror during the Unification Wars, among the millions of refugees and orphans left behind by centuries of atomic warfare and genetic manipulation gone wrong. A boy survived by strength and cunning. He had no name worth remembering, no family to claim him, no future beyond the next desperate struggle for food or safety. He was one of countless nameless children, living in the ruins of humanity's cradle, watching rival gangs fight over territory in the forgotten places beneath the planet's rebuilt surface. That nameless boy would become Sigismund, first captain of the Imperial Fists, the Emperor's champion during the Siege of Terror, and founding High Marshal of the Black Templars. His name would become synonymous with martial prowess so sublime that even Primarchs acknowledged him as perhaps the finest swordsman in the entire Imperium. His legend would inspire a chapter that has been on crusade for 10,000 years, never resting, never accepting that there is peace in the galaxy, carrying his vision forward into the dark future he predicted with prophetic accuracy. Sigismund's early life on Terra was defined by violence and survival. He ran with a pack of orphans, scrounging for food and shelter in the toxic wastes of the Ionis Plateau. The Corpse Kings, a rival gang, came to wipe them out, and a young girl named Thera fought them off with nothing but a metal bar and indomitable courage. When the Corpse Kings returned with greater numbers, Sigismund grabbed Thera's weapon after she fell and prepared to make his last stand. He was saved only by the arrival of the Emperor's recruiters, looking for candidates strong enough to survive the transformation into Space Marines. The Imperial Fists Legion took him in, recognizing in this fierce, uncompromising youth the raw material for something great. The transformation from feral orphan to Space Marine was brutal, but Sigismund endured it with the same grim determination that had kept him alive on Terra's mean streets. He emerged from his training as something more than human, his already considerable physical capabilities enhanced to superhuman levels, his natural aggression channeled and refined into the disciplined fury of an Imperial Fist. Even among the Imperial Fists, Sigismund stood out. His skill with a blade was extraordinary, demonstrating a natural talent that training could only enhance. He moved with an economy of motion that wasted no energy, struck with precision that found every weakness, defended with a perfection that left no openings. To watch Sigismund fight was to watch death made elegant, an art form performed with cold efficiency rather than theatrical flourish. He was not flashy, he was simply perfect. His exceptional ability earned him a place in the Templar Brethren, the elite warriors of the Imperial Fists' First Company. To join the Templars was an honor reserved for the very best, and Sigismund was one of the youngest Space Marines ever inducted into their ranks. Under the tutelage of the Templar's weapon, Smith Appius, Sigismund honed his skills to a razor's edge. During training, Appius asked him a question that would define the rest of his life. What do you fight for? Sigismund thought back to the orphans he had tried to protect, to Thera who had fought and died defending the weak, to all the powerless people he had seen ground under the boots of the strong. His answer was simple but profound. He fought to protect those who could not protect themselves. This philosophy would guide him throughout his career, informing every decision, shaping his character in ways that even he did not fully understand at the time. His skill brought him to the attention of Rogel Dawn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists and the Emperor's chosen architect of defense. Dawn was known for his cold pragmatism, his analytical mind, his refusal to tolerate anything less than perfection. That such a demanding Primarch would single out Sigismund for special attention spoke volumes about the young warrior's capabilities. Dawn made Sigismund his personal champion, tasking him with representing the Imperial Fists in matters of honor and combat. During a joint campaign with the Iron Hands Legion, Rogel Dawn and Ferrus Manus, Primarch of the Iron Hands, disagreed about tactics. Rather than let their disagreement fester or escalate into confrontation between their legions, the two Primarchs decided to settle the matter through their champions. Dawn selected Sigismund to represent the Imperial Fists. In the duel that followed, Sigismund fought with such skill that he earned the respect not only of his own Primarch, but of Ferrus Manus as well. This was no mean feat. Primarchs did not give their respect lightly, and to earn it through martial prowess against another Primarch's chosen warrior was extraordinary. Sigismund's reputation as a swordsman grew throughout the Great Crusade. He was spoken of in the same breath as the finest duelists of the other legions. Khan of the World Eaters, that consummate warrior whose skill was matched only by his bloodlust. Raldaron of the Blood Angels, whose grace and precision reflected his Primarch's own martial perfection. Sevatar of the Night Lords, whose brutal efficiency and dark humor made him a legend in his own right. To be counted among such warriors was recognition of Sigismund's supreme ability. But for all his martial skill, Sigismund was more than just a warrior. He possessed a philosophical depth that many of his contemporaries lacked. During a conversation with Captain Tarek Torgadon of the Lunar Wolves, Sigismund made a statement that would prove prophetic. We will spend our lives fighting to secure this Imperium, and then I fear we will spend the rest of our days fighting to keep it intact. In the far future, there will be only war." These words, spoken during the height of the Great Crusade when victory seemed assured, captured a truth that most refused to acknowledge. Sigismund understood that the dream of a united humanity at peace was just that, a dream. The reality would be endless war. This realistic, almost pessimistic view of the future set Sigismund apart from many of his brothers who believed in the Great Crusade's ultimate triumph. He saw clearly that space was limitless, and so too was humanity's capacity for conflict. He understood that securing the Imperium was only the first step, that maintaining it would be an eternal struggle. This philosophy would shape his actions during the Horus Heresy and his founding of the Black Templars afterward. When the heresy came, when half the Space Marine legions turned traitor under the Warmaster Horus's banner, Sigismund's moment of greatest testing arrived. He had befriended several members of other legions during the Great Crusade, including Garviel Loken of the Lunar Wolves. When Loken and a handful of other loyalists escaped the initial betrayal at Istvan III aboard the damaged ship Eisenstein, they brought word of the heresy to Terra. Sigismund was part of the honor guard that accompanied Rogel Dawn to board the Eisenstein and hear their terrible news. The revelation that Horus had turned traitor, that entire legions were marching on Terra to destroy everything they had built, struck the loyalists like a physical blow. The Imperial fists were ordered to fortify Terra in preparation for the siege to come. Rogel Dawn, the master of defensive warfare, would transform the Imperial Palace into the most formidable fortress in human history. Sigismund, as first captain, should have led the Retribution fleet sent to harry the traitors' advance and slow their approach to Terra. But Sigismund had been contacted by WH40K, the first saint of the Imperial cult, that was beginning to form despite the Emperor's opposition to being worshipped as a god. Kila told Sigismund of a vision. If he left Terra, he would die forgotten under an unknown star, but if he remained to defend the throne world, he would be remembered forever. This prophecy deeply affected Sigismund, who believed he had a vital role to play in the coming siege. When Dawn ordered him to lead the Retribution fleet, Sigismund refused. He requested that another be given the honor, that he be allowed to remain on Terra. Dawn was puzzled but agreed, sending Captain Yonad instead. Later, when the full scale of the betrayal became clear, Sigismund confessed to his Primarch that he had refused the posting because of Kila's prophecy. He had let religious belief, which the Emperor rejected as superstition, influence his duty. Rogel Dawn was furious. The Primarch's rage was terrible to behold, his disappointment in his favored son crushing. Dawn stripped Sigismund of his position of honor, declaring him no true son of Dawn, casting him out from his inner circle. Though Dawn did not formally censure Sigismund or announce his disgrace publicly, that would have damaged morale and sown division. The personal rejection cut deeper than any physical wound. Sigismund had disappointed the Primarch he revered above all others, the father figure who had recognized his worth and raised him to greatness. Yet Sigismund's decision, born from what seemed like weakness, would prove crucial to the defense of Terra. Captain Yonad, who led the Retribution fleet instead, was killed fighting the traitors, dying forgotten under an unknown star, just as Kila had prophesied Sigismund would if he had gone. Meanwhile, Sigismund remained on Terra, and his presence during the siege would prove invaluable. As the traitor legions approached Terra, as the sky darkened with their invasion fleet and the ground shook with the tread of millions of traitor space marines, Rogel Dawn made a decision that would cement Sigismund's legend forever. The traitors had raised up champions of chaos, warriors possessed by demonic power, who issued challenges and slew any who faced them. To counter these champions, Dawn resurrected an ancient tradition. He appointed an Emperor's champion, a single warrior who would seek out and destroy the enemy's greatest fighters in single combat. Dawn chose Sigismund. Despite his earlier disappointment, Despite the breach between them, the Primarch recognized that there was no finer warrior, no one more suited to this sacred duty. Sigismund was given the finest armor and weapons the Imperial Fists possessed. He was charged with hunting down the champions of chaos and destroying them in the Emperor's name. It was both forgiveness and a terrible burden, an opportunity for redemption that would require him to face the most dangerous opponents on the battlefield again and again. Sigismund accepted his role with characteristic determination. He strode through the besieged imperial palace, challenging any champion of chaos he encountered. One after another, they fell before his blade. Traitor captains who had slaughtered hundreds in the Emperor's name, possessed warriors wielding demonic weapons, berserkers who knew no fear, all of them died when they faced the Emperor's champion. Some duels lasted mere seconds, Sigismund's blade finding the killing stroke before his opponent could mount an effective defense. Others were prolonged struggles, tests of skill and endurance, but the outcome was always the same. Sigismund victorious, his enemy dead at his feet. Through the months of the siege, as the palace burned and the defenders fought inch by inch to hold back the traitor tide, Sigismund carved a legend in blood. He killed over 24 enemy champions personally, each one a warrior of terrible skill and power. His black and white armor, spattered with the blood of traitors, became a symbol of hope for the defenders. To see the Emperor's champion striding through the battle was to know that humanity still had warriors who could stand against the darkness. When the Emperor and his loyalist sons boarded Horus's flagship for the final confrontation, Rogel Dawn left Sigismund behind to command the ground forces. It was a position of supreme trust. Placing the defense of the Imperial Palace in the hands of the warrior Dawn had once cast out. Sigismund coordinated the defense with the same cold efficiency he brought to personal combat, holding the line until word came that the Emperor had slain Horus and the traitors were breaking. But for Sigismund, the war did not end with Horus's death. His anger at the traitors, his rage at the betrayal of everything they had built during the Great Crusade, burned too hot to be quenched by a single victory. When Abaddon, first captain of the traitor sons of Horus, fled into the Eye of Terror with the remnants of the traitor legions, Sigismund pursued. For centuries after the heresy, he hunted Abaddon, seeking to bring the arch-traitor to justice. The pursuit became almost obsessive. Sigismund could not accept that the traitors had escaped justice, that they still lived when so many loyalists had died. Every time he came close to Abaddon, the traitor's followers would sacrifice themselves to buy their lord time to escape. Sigismund killed hundreds of traitor space marines in his hunt, but Abaddon remained frustratingly out of reach. Then came the second founding, Robert Guilliman's reorganization of the Space Marine legions into smaller chapters. The Imperial Fists were to be divided, their massive strength broken into more manageable units that could not threaten the Imperium as Horus's rebellion had. Rogel Dawn initially resisted. He had built the Imperial Fists according to his vision, and he did not appreciate being told to dismantle them. But eventually, under threat of being declared traitors themselves, Dawn relented. Sigismund was given command of one of the new chapters, formed from the most zealous warriors of the Imperial Fists, those who shared his view that the war would never end. He named this chapter the Black Templars, adopting the black and white heraldry he had worn as Emperor's champion as their colors. Rather than establish a homeworld and fortress monastery as most chapters did, Sigismund led his Black Templars on an eternal crusade. They would take to the stars in their fleet, never resting, never accepting peace, hunting the Emperor's enemies across the galaxy. The Black Templars became the embodiment of Sigismund's philosophy. They rejected the limitations of the Codex Astartes that governed other chapters, maintaining a force far larger than the prescribed 1,000 warriors by technically never consolidating their scattered crusade fleets. They embraced the imperial cult, acknowledging the Emperor as divine even when most space marines remained secular. They adopted a knightly aesthetic and culture, viewing themselves as warrior pilgrims whose crusade would never end. All of this flowed directly from Sigismund's vision and leadership. For centuries after the founding, Sigismund led his Black Templars personally, his black blade reaping a terrible toll among the Emperor's enemies. He continued to seek Abaddon, his pursuit as relentless as the crusade itself. And finally, in the depths of space, Abaddon stopped running. The Lord of the Black Legion faced the aging High Marshal in single combat, warrior to warrior, legend to legend. The duel was everything such a confrontation should be. Two of the finest warriors humanity had ever produced, facing each other with centuries of skill and hatred between them. Before they began, Abaddon tried one last time to turn Sigismund, offering him a place at his side, arguing that the Imperium belonged to the Space Marines who had bled to build it. Sigismund rejected the offer utterly. The traitors had proven they cared nothing for the Imperium when they turned against it, and no words could undo that betrayal. They fought, and despite his centuries of experience, despite his legendary skill, Sigismund was now old by Space Marine standards. The same relentless drive that had sustained him for so long had also worn him down. Abaddon, twisted and empowered by chaos, struck the killing blow. Sigismund fell, his black sword finally struck from his hand, his life ending at last under an unknown star, just as he had been destined to do if he had left Terra during the heresy. But he did not die forgotten. His legend had grown too large, his deeds too numerous, his impact too profound for him to simply fade into obscurity. The Black Templars mourned their founder and swore to continue his eternal crusade. Every chapter master, High Marshal, who followed would try to emulate Sigismund's example. The tradition of naming an emperor's champion before each major battle continued, with individual Black Templars seized by visions of past glories and taking up blessed weapons to fight in Sigismund's name. 10,000 years after his death, Sigismund's influence still shapes the Black Templars. They remain on crusade, never accepting that there is peace in the galaxy, hunting the Emperor's enemies with the same zealous determination their founder displayed. His prophecy, "In the far future, there will be only war," has proven tragically accurate. The Imperium is beset on all sides, declining slowly despite the sacrifices of its defenders, caught in the exact situation Sigismund foresaw during the optimistic heights of the Great Crusade. Sigismund stands as a testament to the power of skill and determination. He was not the strongest space marine, not the most strategic, not blessed with supernatural powers beyond the already superhuman capabilities of the Astartes. What he possessed was unmatched skill with a blade and an unbreakable will. He perfected the art of single combat to a degree that few have ever achieved, becoming a master so complete that even those who were otherwise his superiors acknowledged his supremacy in this one crucial area. His legacy extends beyond just the Black Templars. The tradition of the Emperor's champion exists in multiple chapters, inspired by Sigismund's example. The ideal of the crusade, the refusal to accept that the work is ever done, influences how many chapters approach their mission. His realistic view of the eternal nature of war has been validated by 10 millennia of conflict, proving that his vision was clearer than those who believed in ultimate victory. Sigismund the warrior was peerless. Sigismund the philosopher understood truths others refused to acknowledge. Sigismund the founder created a chapter that would embody his vision for 10,000 years. And Sigismund, the legend, continues to inspire warriors who never knew him, who live in an age he could barely have imagined, but who carry his black blade forward into the darkness he predicted with such terrible accuracy. Marneus Calgar, the living embodiment of Ultramarines' excellence. On the world of Macragge, in the fortress monastery called the Fortress of Hera, there exists a vault where the greatest deeds of the Ultramarines are recorded. Each hero of the chapter has their accomplishments documented, their battles catalogued, their victories preserved for future generations to study and emulate. In this vault, one name dominates: Marneus Augustus Calgar, Lord of Macragge, Chapter Master of the Ultramarines, and Lord Defender of Greater Ultramar. His recorded accomplishments fill 28 volumes, twice as many as any other ultramarine in the chapter's 10,000-year history, second only to their returned Primarch Robuta Guilliman himself. Let those numbers sink in. 28 volumes. We're talking about a warrior whose deeds are so numerous, so significant, that recording them requires multiple books. This is not embellishment or propaganda. The Ultramarines are meticulous record keepers, and every entry in those volumes represents a real battle won, a strategic masterstroke executed, a moment of leadership or valor that made a difference. Marneus Calgar has earned his legendary status through sheer accumulation of excellence over centuries of service. But Calgar's story does not begin in glory. Born on the world of Nova Thulium, he was not originally named Marneus Calgar at all. He was Taciturn, a serf in the service of the noble House of Calgar. Despite his lowly status, he trained alongside the actual heir to House Calgar, a young noble who bore the name Marneus. The two formed a close bond, both seeking honor and escape from the rigidity of the noble system by attempting to become space marines. Under the tutelage of a trainer named Crixus, they underwent the brutal preparation necessary to have any chance of surviving the transformation into Astartes. But Crixus was not what he appeared. He and many of the other aspirants were secretly cornate cultists, worshippers of the blood god Chaos. When Taciturn and the real Marneus discovered a blood ritual in progress, they tried to escape. In the fight that followed, Marneus Calgar was killed by the cultists. Taciturn survived. He fought his way free, but his friend did not. In his grief and determination to honor the young noble who had been his companion, Taciturn made a vow: Marneus Calgar would live on. He took his friend's identity, carrying his name forward, becoming Marneus Calgar in everything but birth. He would go on to justify that borrowed name through deeds that would make it legendary across the entire Imperium. After successfully becoming a space marine of the Ultramarines, Calgar distinguished himself through a combination of tactical brilliance and personal valor that marked him as exceptional even among the sons of Guilliman. The Ultramarines pride themselves on versatility and tactical flexibility, on being able to adapt to any situation and execute complex strategies with perfect precision. Calgar embodied these virtues perfectly, demonstrating again and again that he could handle whatever the galaxy threw at him. His rise through the ranks was steady and well-deserved. He served in various companies, gaining experience in different types of warfare, learning the arts of command from officers who themselves were products of the Ultramarines' rigorous training system. He studied the Codex Astartes, that comprehensive manual of warfare written by Robuta Guilliman himself, not just learning its lessons, but understanding the principles behind them, knowing when to follow its wisdom and when the situation demanded innovation. When Calgar was appointed chapter master, he inherited a position of immense responsibility. The Ultramarines are often considered the most important chapter in the Imperium. They maintain control over the mini-empire of Ultramar, a cluster of worlds that represents some of the most well-governed territory in the entire Imperium. They serve as the exemplar chapter, the standard by which others are measured. Their gene seed is considered the most stable, used to found more successor chapters than any other. To command the Ultramarines is to bear responsibility not just for a single chapter, but for a significant portion of the Imperium's military might. Calgar took to this responsibility with characteristic competence. He coordinated the defense of Ultramar's worlds, organized campaigns across the Eastern Fringe, and ensured the Ultramarines maintained their position as first among equals in the Brotherhood of Chapters. But his true test, the campaign that would cement his legendary status, came when the Tyranids arrived at Macragge. Hive Fleet Behemoth was one of the first major Tyranid invasions the Imperium encountered, a swarm of alien organisms so vast that it seemed to blot out the stars. The hive mind had identified Macragge, the crown jewel of Ultramar, as a target rich with biomass. Billions of Tyranid creatures descended upon the system, from tiny gene stealers that could infiltrate defenses to massive bio-titans that towered over buildings, all driven by the single purpose of consuming everything organic and adding its biomass to the swarm. Kalga recognized immediately that this was an existential threat not just to Macragge, but to Ultramar and potentially the entire Eastern Fringe. He marshaled every resource available, calling in the Ultramarines fleet, activating Macragge's orbital defense platforms, and organizing the ground forces into 3 coordinated armies. He took personal command of the Third Force, leading from the front in a series of running battles designed to slow the Tyranid advance and buy time for evacuations and reinforcement. The fighting was desperate and brutal. The Tyranids came in seemingly endless waves, their numbers so vast that killing them barely seemed to make a dent in their forces. Kalgar coordinated a defense that should have been impossible, his strategic genius allowing the Ultramarines to hold against odds that would have broken lesser forces. He led counterattacks personally, his power fists crushing Tyranid monsters, his tactical acumen allowing him to identify and eliminate synapse creatures that coordinated the swarms. The campaign's climax came when Kalgar led a boarding action against the Tyranid hive ship itself. This was an act of almost suicidal bravery, taking the fight directly into the heart of the enemy fleet, into the massive bioship where the hive fleet's consciousness was concentrated. Kalgar and his honor guard fought through corridors of living flesh, battling Tyranid creatures in their thousands, pushing deeper and deeper into the alien vessel despite horrific casualties. The fighting inside the hive ship was like something from a nightmare. The walls pulsed with alien life. Acid burned through armor. Tyranid organisms attacked from every direction. Kalgar's honor guard was cut down one by one. The best warriors the Ultramarines possessed, dying to buy their chapter master time to reach the ship's critical systems. In the final chamber, Kalgar faced a hive tyrant, one of the most lethal creatures the Tyranids could produce, alone. The duel between Kalgar and the hive tyrant is the stuff of legend. The alien creature was faster than anything organic had a right to be, its bioweapons spraying acid and bone shards, its talons capable of tearing through ceramite armor. Kalgar was wounded multiple times, his armor breached, his body ravaged. But he fought on with the determination that had carried him through countless battles, his power fists crushing alien flesh, his tactical mind finding the patterns in the creature's attacks. When Kalgar finally killed the hive tyrant and destroyed the hive ship's core functions, he had been so grievously wounded that his survival seemed impossible. His body was broken, his armor shredded, his blood mixing with alien ichor on the floor of the dying bioship. The teleportarium managed to retrieve him at the last possible moment, pulling him back to the Ultramarines' flagship just as the hive ship tore itself apart. Kalgar survived, though his recovery required extensive bionics and the best care the Ultramarines' apothecaries could provide. He had proven himself willing to sacrifice everything for his chapter and his world. The defense of Macragge succeeded, the Tyranid threat neutralized, but the cost had been terrible. The Ultramarines' first company was almost completely destroyed. Elite Terminators, who had served for centuries, wiped out in the fighting. Kalgar himself bore scars, both physical and psychological, from the campaign. But he did not let these losses break him. Instead, he used the lessons learned from fighting the Tyranids to develop new tactics for countering this alien threat. He ensured that the Codex Astartes was updated with information about Tyranid behavior and weaknesses. He worked to rebuild the first company, training new Terminators to replace those who had fallen. He turned a costly victory into a foundation for future success. The defense of Macragge was only the most famous of Kalgar's campaigns. His 28 volumes of recorded accomplishments include countless other victories. He masterminded the Corinthian Crusade, crushing an Orc Warg before it could threaten multiple Imperial worlds. He led the reclamation of Damnos from the Necrons, developing tactics for fighting those ancient mechanical warriors. He coordinated the defense of the Bastia subsector against Hive Fleet Leviathan, applying the lessons learned from Behemoth to achieve victory at lower cost. In each campaign, Calgar demonstrated the qualities that made him legendary: strategic brilliance, personal valor, inspirational leadership, and the versatility to adapt to any enemy or situation. He was equally capable of leading massive fleet actions spanning multiple star systems and engaging in close-quarters boarding actions where his personal combat prowess made the difference. He could coordinate the efforts of millions of Imperial Guard soldiers and inspire individual Space Marines to acts of extraordinary heroism. Calgar's leadership style exemplifies the Ultramarine's philosophy. He does not throw his warriors away in futile charges. He understands that while Space Marines are powerful, they are also precious resources that must be used wisely. He plans meticulously, ensuring logistics and supply lines are secure, coordinating with other Imperial forces to maximize effectiveness. But when the moment of crisis comes, when leadership requires personal action, Calgar is always at the front, showing his warriors that he will never ask them to face danger he won't face himself. The return of Roboute Guilliman presented Calgar with a unique challenge. For centuries, he had been the supreme leader of the Ultramarines and Ultramar. Now, suddenly, the Primarch himself had returned, a being of such overwhelming presence and capability that he made even chapter masters seem diminished. When Guilliman's stasis chamber was opened during the war, gathering storm, when the Primarch rose to lead the Imperium once more, Calgar had to grapple with complex emotions. There was relief that such a powerful leader had returned to guide humanity through its darkest hour. There was awe at standing in the presence of a Primarch, something most Space Marines only knew from legends. But there was also uncertainty about his own role. Would Guilliman see him as obsolete? Would the chapter master position become merely ceremonial with the Primarch present? Had Calgar's centuries of service and hard-won victories been merely keeping the seat warm for the true master's return? Guilliman laid these fears to rest through his words and actions. The Primarch recognized in Calgar a worthy successor, a warrior who embodied everything Guilliman had hoped his sons would become. He not only confirmed Calgar's position as chapter master, but gave him a new title, Lord Defender of Greater Ultramar. When Guilliman departed on the Indomitus Crusade to reinforce Imperial worlds across the galaxy, he left Calgar in command of Ultramar with complete confidence in his abilities. This vote of confidence from the Primarch himself is perhaps the ultimate validation of Calgar's legendary status. Guilliman is a being of supreme intellect and strategic genius, one of the Emperor's own sons, and he chose to trust Calgar with the defense of Ultramar and the leadership of the Ultramarines. That trust was not misplaced. In Guilliman's absence, Calgar has continued to lead with the same excellence that characterized his entire career. The introduction of Primaris Space Marines presented another challenge. These new warriors, larger and more physically capable than traditional Space Marines, threatened to create division within the chapters. Some traditional Marines feared obsolescence. Others resented the implication that they were insufficient, that a new generation had to be created to accomplish what they could not. The integration of Primaris Marines into existing chapters proceeded unevenly, with some accepting them and others viewing them with suspicion. Calgar addressed this issue in the most direct way possible. He volunteered to undergo the Rubicon Primaris himself. This procedure would transform him from a traditional Space Marine into a Primaris warrior, but it was experimental and extremely dangerous. The mortality rate was over 60%, and even chapter masters were not immune to that risk. Calgar knew he might die on the operating table, but he also knew that his willingness to take that risk would send a powerful message. The surgery was every bit as traumatic as feared. Calgar's body was pushed to its absolute limit, his centuries-old physiology strained by the transformation. He died on the operating table, his heart stopping, his brain activity ceasing. For agonizing minutes, the apothecaries fought to revive him, applying every technique available, refusing to accept that the legendary chapter master could be lost, to a surgical procedure after surviving countless battles. They succeeded. Calgar was brought back from the threshold of death, his body successfully transformed into a Primaris space marine. When he recovered, he was larger, stronger, more resilient than before. But more importantly, he had demonstrated that change was not something to fear, that adaptation was survival, and that even the most legendary warriors could evolve. His decision to cross the Rubicon Primaris helped ease the integration of Primaris Marines throughout the Imperium, his personal example providing cover for others to follow. Today, Marneus Calgar continues to lead the Ultramarines with the same excellence that has defined his entire career. He wears the armor of Antilochus, legendary Terminator armor that has been modified to fit his new Primaris physiology. He wields the gauntlets of Ultramar, twin power fists that can crush enemies in close combat or firebolt weapons at range. He stands as the living embodiment of everything the Ultramarines represent: tactical brilliance, adaptability, courage, and unwavering dedication to the Imperium. His 28 volumes of accomplishments continue to grow. Each campaign adds to his legend, each victory another line in the records maintained by the Ultramarines librarians. He has led his chapter for longer than many chapters have existed, his accumulated experience making him one of the most capable military leaders in the entire Imperium. When the High Lords need someone to coordinate a major campaign, when a situation requires both strategic genius and personal heroism, Marneus Calgar's name is often the first mentioned. But perhaps Calgar's greatest achievement is not any single battle or campaign. It's the consistency of excellence he has maintained over centuries of service. He has never rested on his laurels, never assumed that past victories guaranteed future success, never stopped adapting and learning. Each challenge is met with the full focus of his considerable abilities. Each enemy is studied and countered with tactics designed for their specific weaknesses. Each campaign is planned meticulously and executed with precision. Marneus Calgar proves that legendary status doesn't require being the oldest warrior or the most skilled duelist. It requires being excellent at everything the role demands, again and again, for as long as service continues. It requires leading from the front while also planning the larger strategy. It requires inspiring others through personal example while also making the hard decisions that leadership demands. It requires being willing to risk everything, even one's legendary status itself, when duty calls for it. The name Marneus Calgar, borrowed from a fallen friend and made legendary through a lifetime of service, now stands among the greatest in the Imperium's history. His deeds are studied by aspiring chapter masters across the galaxy. His tactical decisions are analyzed in military academies. His example inspires not just Ultramarines, but all Space Marines, who strive for excellence in service of the Emperor. And his legend continues to grow with each passing year, each new campaign, each victory snatched from the jaws of impossible odds. The qualities that forge legends. What makes a Space Marine legendary? After examining the lives of Dante, Bjorn, Sigismund, and Calgar, certain patterns emerge. These warriors come from different chapters, different eras, different circumstances, yet they share fundamental qualities that elevated them from merely excellent to truly legendary. Understanding these commonalities helps us grasp what it truly means to achieve greatness in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. First and foremost is longevity, combined with sustained excellence. Being old is not enough. The galaxy is full of ancient warriors who survived through luck or caution. Being excellent is not enough. Every Space Marine is exceptional by normal human standards. What sets legends apart is maintaining peak performance over vast spans of time, consistently making the right decisions, consistently winning battles, consistently inspiring others, despite the grinding weight of centuries. Commander Dante has served for over 1,500 years, longer than many civilizations have existed. But he hasn't just survived, he has excelled at every stage of his impossibly long career. He was an excellent scout, an outstanding tactical marine, a brilliant captain, and a peerless chapter master. Each promotion was earned through demonstrated excellence, and each new responsibility was met with success. The weight of years could have made him slow, cautious, or detached. Instead, it has made him wise, experienced, and even more capable than he was as a younger warrior. Similarly, Bjorn the Fell-Handed has endured for 10,000 years, spending most of that time in the limbo of dreadnought sleep. When he awakens, he fights with the same grim determination he displayed during the Great Crusade. His combat effectiveness has not diminished despite his age, because he has accumulated 10 millennia of tactical knowledge, learning from every battle, adapting to every enemy, building a database of experience that makes him virtually unbeatable. The second essential quality is tactical brilliance. These legendary warriors don't just fight, they think. They understand warfare at both strategic and tactical levels, able to see the big picture while also executing perfect small unit tactics. They study their enemies, identify weaknesses, and exploit them with ruthless efficiency. They make decisions under pressure that save lives and win battles, turning defeat into victory through sheer intellectual capability married to military expertise. Marneus Calgar exemplifies this quality. His 28 volumes of accomplishments are not just a record of battles won through brute force. They document countless instances where his tactical genius made the difference. His defense of Macragge against Hive Fleet Behemoth showcased his ability to coordinate forces across an entire system, managing resources, timing reinforcements, identifying critical targets, and adapting his strategy as the situation evolved. Lesser commanders would have been overwhelmed by the complexity. Calgar thrived in it. Sigismund, though primarily known for his dueling prowess, also demonstrated strategic thinking. His founding of the Black Templars as an eternally crusading chapter showed his understanding that the nature of warfare had changed, that the dream of ultimate victory was an illusion, and that the Imperium needed warriors who would never stop fighting. This strategic insight shaped a chapter that has remained effective for 10,000 years. The third quality is personal combat prowess. While Space Marines are generally capable warriors, legends consistently demonstrate ability that stands out even among their enhanced brethren. They win duels against enemies who should overwhelm them. They survive situations that kill others. They inspire through their personal skill, showing that perfect mastery of martial arts is achievable and worth pursuing. Sigismund represents the apex of this quality. His dueling skill was so refined that he could defeat almost anyone, earning respect from primarchs and terror from enemies. Every movement was optimized, every response perfectly timed, every strike placed with surgical precision. To watch him fight was to understand what peak human capability looks like when enhanced by Space Marine biology and refined through centuries of practice. But the other legends are no slouches in personal combat either. Dante wields the Axe Mortalis with deadly grace, his jump pack allowing him to strike from unexpected angles, his experience teaching him exactly where to hit for maximum effect. Calgar's power fists have crushed Tyrannid monsters and Chaos champions alike, his raw strength combined with perfect timing, making him devastating in close combat. Even Bjorn, locked in his dreadnought chassis, fights with a skill that makes him one of the most dangerous combatants in the galaxy. The fourth essential quality is inspirational leadership. Legends don't just lead their immediate subordinates, they inspire entire armies, entire populations, sometimes entire sectors of space. Their presence on a battlefield changes its character, lifting the hearts of allies and striking fear into enemies. They become symbols, their names invoked in prayers, their deeds recounted as moral examples, their very existence proof that humanity can prevail against impossible odds. Dante embodies this perfectly. To Imperial Guard soldiers defending a hive city, the appearance of the golden angel descending from the sky transforms desperation into hope. To blood angels struggling with the curse of their gene seed, their chapter master's mastery of the red thirst and black rage provides a living example that the darkness can be controlled. To the common citizens of the Imperium who hear tales of his deeds, he represents everything they believe Space Marines to be: noble, powerful, and absolutely dedicated to humanity's protection. The fifth quality is sacrifice. These legends have paid prices that would break lesser beings. They have given up everything normal humans take for granted: family, peace, the simple pleasures of existence, in service to a duty that never ends. They carry burdens that would crush ordinary people, making impossible choices, bearing responsibility for countless deaths, watching everyone they care about die while they endure. Consider what Dante has sacrificed. He has outlived everyone he trained with, everyone he commanded for his first few centuries, even most of the commanders who came after. The accumulated grief of so much loss weighs on him constantly. He longs for death, for release from the burden of command, but continues to serve because duty demands it. He has given not just his life, but his eternity to the Imperium, paying a price beyond what can ever be repaid. Bjorn's sacrifice is perhaps even more stark. He has been locked in a metal sarcophagus for 10,000 years. He cannot feel the wind, taste food, or experience physical touch. He exists in a limbo between life and death, sustained by machinery, awakened only to fight or share memories. His grumpiness and irreverence barely mask the profound isolation of his existence. He endures because the space wolves need him, because his knowledge is too valuable to lose, because duty demands his continued existence, even when death would be mercy. The sixth quality is adaptability. The galaxy changes constantly, throwing new threats and new challenges at the Imperium with relentless frequency. Legends adapt, learning from each encounter, modifying their tactics, incorporating new information, remaining effective despite an ever-shifting tactical landscape. They don't cling to outdated methods or rest on past victories. They evolve. Calgar's decision to cross the Rubicon Primaris exemplifies this quality. He could have rested on his laurels, remained a traditional space marine, relied on his centuries of experience and reputation. Instead, he recognized that the Primaris Marines represented an evolution in space marine capability, and rather than resist change, he embraced it. He risked everything to transform himself, understanding that survival requires adaptation, even when the old ways have worked for centuries. The seventh quality is an understanding of the true nature of their war. These legends harbor no illusions about ultimate victory or final peace. They understand that warfare in the 41st millennium is eternal, that new enemies will always arise, that the Imperium's struggles will continue for as long as humanity endures. This clear-eyed realism prevents them from being crushed by disappointment when victory proves temporary or when new threats emerge just as old ones are defeated. Sigismund articulated this understanding most clearly. In the far future, there will be only war. He saw through the optimistic rhetoric of the Great Crusade to the underlying truth that space is limitless, and so is humanity's capacity for conflict. This realistic assessment didn't make him cynical or defeatist. Instead, it made him the perfect founder for a chapter that would crusade eternally, never resting, never accepting that the work is done, always pushing forward against the darkness. The final quality that unites these legends is faith, though not necessarily religious faith. They believe in something larger than themselves, whether it's the Emperor's vision for humanity, the honor of their chapter, the protection of innocence, or simply the importance of doing one's duty, regardless of whether victory is achievable. This faith sustains them through the darkest moments, providing meaning to their sacrifices and purpose to their endless struggles. Dante believes he is destined to stand beside the Emperor in humanity's darkest hour. This belief has sustained him through 1500 years when simple exhaustion might otherwise have overwhelmed him. Whether the prophecy is true or not matters less than the fact that it gives him a reason to endure, a purpose beyond simply surviving another day. His faith in his destiny allows him to bear a burden that would crush someone who saw their service as ultimately meaningless. These qualities, longevity with sustained excellence, tactical brilliance, personal combat prowess, inspirational leadership, sacrifice, adaptability, clear-eyed understanding of the war's nature, and faith in something larger than oneself, combine in different proportions in each legendary warrior. Some excel more in strategy, others in personal combat. Some inspire through words and presence, others through pure example, but all possess enough of each quality to transcend mere excellence and achieve true legendary status. Understanding these qualities helps explain why certain Space Marines become legends, while countless others, equally brave and skilled, are forgotten. It's not just about living long or fighting well. It's about consistently demonstrating multiple forms of excellence simultaneously, about making the right choices under impossible pressure, about inspiring others through example rather than just command, about sacrificing everything while maintaining the faith necessary to continue serving. These qualities are not genetic, not granted by the gene seed or the implantation process. They're forged through experience, through choices made in the crucible of warfare, through the daily decision to continue serving despite the grinding weight of duty. They're achievable by anyone with sufficient determination, though few have the combination of circumstance and character necessary to fully develop them. The legendary Space Marines we've examined prove that greatness is possible even in the grim darkness of the far future. They show that individual warriors can make a difference, that leadership matters, that skill and determination can overcome seemingly impossible odds. They provide hope in a galaxy that offers precious little of it, serving as living proof that humanity has the strength to endure whatever the galaxy throws at it. The price of glory. What legends sacrifice? The common citizens of the Imperium see Space Marines as invincible angels of death, superhuman warriors who know no fear and face no doubt. The legends, warriors like Dante, Bjorn, Sigismund, and Calgar, are elevated even further in the popular imagination, becoming almost mythical figures whose capabilities seem limitless. But this public perception, while useful for morale, obscures a darker truth. Being legendary comes with costs that would shatter lesser beings. The first and most obvious price is time. These warriors have served for centuries, some for millennia. Every year that passes is another year watching brothers fall, another year of war without respite, another year carrying the weight of command and the burden of memory. For normal humans, time eventually brings rest through death. For these legendary Space Marines, time becomes an ever-growing burden, each passing year adding to the accumulated weight of experience and loss. Commander Dante has lived for over 1,500 years, and the burden of those years is crushing. He has watched generations of blood angels be born, trained, and die. He has presided over funeral rites for warriors he personally recruited as aspirants, seen them through their transformation into Space Marines, trained them in tactics and warfare, led them into battle, and finally spoken words of honor over their bodies. He has done this thousands of times, for thousands of warriors, each death adding another layer of grief to his already heavy heart. The isolation of such longevity is profound. Dante has become separated from his brothers by the sheer gulf of years. He remembers events that are ancient history to them, references people they've only heard of in legends, speaks of battles that happened before their grandparents were born. The connections that bind normal people together, shared experiences, similar ages, common cultural references, become tenuous when one person has lived for centuries while others measure their service in mere decades. This isolation extends to decision-making. Chapter masters and other legendary leaders make choices that determine whether hundreds or thousands of people live or die. They order assaults that they know will result in casualties because the tactical situation demands it. They sacrifice units to buy time for evacuations or to set up killing zones for enemy forces. They make the cold calculations of war, weighing lives against objectives, and they carry the weight of those decisions forever. Calgar has made such decisions countless times over his centuries of command. When he led the boarding action against the Tyrannid hive ship, he knew his honor guard would likely die. He took them anyway because the mission was critical. When he organized the defense of Macragge, he had to decide which areas could be held and which had to be abandoned, knowing that abandonment meant death for everyone in those zones. These decisions were tactically necessary, but that doesn't make them any easier to bear. The psychological toll of combat itself cannot be overlooked. Even Space Marines, for all their conditioning and emotional dampening, are not immune to the horrors of warfare. They see things that would drive normal humans mad instantly. The corrupting touch of chaos, the alien horror of Tyrannid feeding, the soulless efficiency of Necron extermination, the sadistic cruelty of Dark Eldar raids. They witness the deaths of brothers, see their friends torn apart by enemy weapons, watch their brothers succumb to the flaws in their gene seed. For warriors who have fought for centuries or millennia, the accumulated psychological burden is immense. They have seen every form of death, witnessed every variety of suffering, endured situations that would break normal humans hundreds or thousands of times over. The fact that they remain functional, continue to lead, maintain their tactical acumen despite this accumulated trauma, speaks to extraordinary mental resilience. But that resilience has limits, and legendary warriors live long enough to approach those limits. Bjorn's grumpiness and irreverence serve as coping mechanisms, ways to maintain his identity and sanity in the face of 10,000 years of intermittent consciousness. The bitter humor, the refusal to be reverent even about figures like Leman Russ, the profanity and complaints, these are signs of a personality that is holding itself together through sheer force of will and personality, refusing to be crushed by the weight of accumulated experience. The physical costs are also significant. Space Marines are resilient, their augmented bodies capable of surviving injuries that would kill normal humans instantly. But even superhuman physiology has limits, and centuries of warfare take their toll. Every scar represents a moment when death came close. Every bionic replacement marks an injury so severe that even apothecary skills couldn't fully heal it. Every persistent ache or reduced mobility reminds them that their bodies are wearing down despite all enhancement. Consider Calgar's transformation into a Primaris Space Marine. His centuries-old body was pushed to its absolute limit by the surgery, and he died on the operating table before being revived. The procedure nearly killed him, not because of its inherent danger alone, but because his physiology had already been stressed by centuries of combat. Every wound he had survived, every toxin he had endured, every time his body had been pushed beyond its limits, all of it accumulated into a body that was resilient but also worn down by endless warfare. The emotional cost is perhaps the most devastating. These warriors must maintain emotional distance from those they command and protect, knowing that attachment makes loss harder to bear. But complete emotional detachment would make them monsters rather than heroes, so they walk a knife's edge between caring enough to inspire and protect, and caring so much that each loss breaks them a little more. Dante's longing for death, his weariness with existence itself, stems from centuries of this emotional burden. He has cared about people, commanded them into situations that got them killed, mourned their loss, and then repeated the process thousands of times. The accumulated grief would have crushed a lesser being. He continues to function because duty demands it, but the cost is a profound exhaustion that goes far beyond mere physical tiredness. The sacrifice of normalcy is another price that's easy to overlook. Space Marines give up everything that makes normal human life meaningful: family, relationships, personal pursuits, the simple pleasures of peaceful existence. They are warriors and nothing else, their entire existence dedicated to warfare. For legendary warriors who live for centuries, this sacrifice extends far beyond what was ever intended. When Dante was inducted into the Blood Angels as a young aspirant, he might have expected a lifespan of a few centuries at most. Instead, he has lived for 1,500 years, all of it in service to the chapter, all of it defined by warfare and command. He has never experienced peace, never known what it's like to live without the constant pressure of duty, never had the chance to be anything other than a warrior and leader. The opportunity cost is staggering. These legendary warriors possess intelligence, creativity, and capability that could have been applied to countless other pursuits. Dante could have been a politician, artist, or scientist. Calgar could have been a scholar or administrator. Sigismund could have been a philosopher or teacher. Instead, all their considerable talents have been channeled into warfare because that's what the Imperium needs from them. There's also the price of witnessing decline. These ancient warriors remember when things were better, when the Imperium was stronger, when hope seemed more justified. They have watched the slow decay of humanity's position in the galaxy, seen worlds lost that will never be reclaimed, witnessed the erosion of knowledge and capability across the entire Imperium. For someone like Bjorn, who remembers the Great Crusade's height, the current state of the Imperium must be almost unbearably disappointing. This knowledge that things are getting worse despite all sacrifices, that the trend is toward decline rather than improvement, that the Imperium is slowly losing ground despite the best efforts of its defenders. This understanding could easily breed cynicism or despair. That these legendary warriors continue to fight despite knowing the long-term outlook is grim speaks to their faith and determination, but that faith comes at the cost of constant mental effort to maintain hope in the face of evidence suggesting hopelessness. The price of legend is also paid in the realm of personal growth and change. These warriors are frozen in their roles, unable to move on or evolve beyond being warriors, because the Imperium needs them to continue being exactly what they are. A normal space marine might serve for a few centuries and then fall in battle, their service complete. These legends must continue indefinitely, unable to rest, unable to change, unable to be anything other than what the Imperium needs them to be. The burden of expectation grows heavier as legend grows. As Dante's fame spreads, more and more is expected of him. He cannot afford to fail, cannot show weakness, cannot acknowledge his exhaustion because too many people depend on the image of the golden warrior who never falters. The legend becomes a trap, forcing the person behind it to constantly perform at peak levels because anything less would shatter the image and damage morale across entire sectors. Sigismund bore a different but equally heavy burden, the weight of being proven right about something terrible. His prophecy that there would be only war proved accurate, but that vindication came at the cost of watching the dream of the Great Crusade die, seeing the Imperium devolve into the grinding nightmare he had foreseen. Being right about something terrible brings no satisfaction, only the bitter knowledge that the warning went unheeded and the suffering he predicted came to pass. Finally, there's the price paid in the currency of relationships and human connection. These legendary warriors stand apart from their brothers, not by choice, but by necessity. The combination of their age, their rank, and their legendary status creates barriers that prevent genuine friendship or camaraderie. They are figures to be revered rather than companions to share experiences with. They are commanders whose orders determine life and death, rather than brothers who share the burden of war. Dante would probably give almost anything to have someone to talk to honestly, someone who shared his perspective, someone who could understand what carrying 1,500 years of experience and responsibility feels like. But there's no one. He is alone at the top, separated from his subordinates by rank and from his peers by the fact that no one else has lived as long or commanded as long or seen as much. His isolation is almost complete, broken only by the duties of command and the necessities of warfare. These prices, time, Isolation, psychological burden, physical deterioration, emotional cost, lost opportunities, witnessing decline, trapped in roles, crushing expectations, and inability to form genuine relationships accumulate into a burden that would break anyone not sustained by superhuman physiology and unbreakable will. The fact that these legendary warriors continue to function, continue to lead, continue to win battles despite paying these prices speaks to strengths that go beyond the merely physical. Understanding what legends sacrifice helps us appreciate their true greatness. They are not great because warfare comes easily to them, or because they face no doubts, or because their victories are inevitable. They are great because they continue to serve excellently despite the crushing weight of accumulated costs, because they maintain their effectiveness despite burdens that would destroy lesser beings, because they pay prices that can never be repaid and continue paying them as long as duty demands. The common citizen who prays for the golden angel to descend and save them has no idea what that angel has sacrificed to be there. The young space marine who looks up to legendary chapter masters has no conception of what those legends have paid to achieve their status. The Imperium benefits enormously from these legendary warriors, but it's important to understand that their legend comes at costs that are almost incomprehensible to those who haven't walked the same path. Beyond the Mount Olympus, other legendary warriors, while Dante, Bjorn, Sigismund, and Calgar represent the pinnacle of legendary status among space marines, they are not alone in achieving greatness. The Imperium's 10,000 years of history have produced many other warriors whose deeds and capabilities mark them as legendary, even if they stand one step below the absolute peak. These warriors deserve recognition and study, for they too have shaped the Imperium's history and continue to inspire those who serve. Logan Grimnar, the great wolf of the Space Wolves, stands as one of the most formidable chapter masters currently active. He has led the Space Wolves for over 700 years, his beard grey with age, but his prowess undiminished. Grimnar is known for his ferocity in battle and his defiance of authority when he believes that authority is wrong. During the months of shame, he refused to allow the Inquisition to massacre the civilian survivors of Armageddon, even when that refusal brought him into conflict with the Imperium's most powerful organization. His weapon, the legendary Axe Morkai, has claimed countless enemies, and his tactical acumen has led the Space Wolves through victory after victory. Grimnar is noted in Imperial records as possibly the greatest living warrior in the Imperium, able to rival even his Primarch in combat. He embodies the Space Wolves' fierce independence and their commitment to protecting the innocent, making him beloved by his chapter and respected even by those who find his defiance troublesome. Azrael, Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels, carries a burden unique among chapter masters, the knowledge of his chapter's deepest shame. The Dark Angels harbor a terrible secret. During the Horus Heresy, a portion of their legion turned traitor under the leadership of Luther, and these fallen angels still haunt the chapter millennia later. Azrael must balance his duties as chapter master with the hunt for the fallen, maintaining secrecy about his chapter's shame while also leading them in battle against the Imperium's many enemies. Despite this crushing burden, Azrael has proven himself an exceptional leader. His tactical skill has seen the Dark Angels through numerous campaigns, and his personal combat prowess marks him as worthy of leading one of the first founding chapters. The weight of secrets he carries would crush lesser beings, but Azrael endures, maintaining the Dark Angels' reputation while also prosecuting the secret war against the fallen. His ability to compartmentalize, to function at peak efficiency while carrying knowledge that would destroy his chapter if revealed, demonstrates extraordinary mental fortitude. Tushan, regent of Prometheus and chapter master of the Salamanders, represents a different kind of legendary status. The Salamanders are known for their compassion towards civilians and their commitment to protecting innocent life. values that set them apart from many other chapters who view civilians as mere resources or acceptable casualties. Tu Shan embodies these values perfectly, leading his chapter with a combination of fierce combat prowess and genuine concern for the people they defend. He fought alongside Commander Dante during the Second War for Armageddon, the two chapter masters standing back to back against Gaz-Gkul Thraka's bodyguard in a battle that has become legendary. Tu Shan's presence inspired the defenders of Armageddon, his willingness to personally engage the most dangerous enemies, showing that even in the 41st millennium's darkness, there are leaders who will put themselves between the innocent and the horrors that threaten them. Kayvan Shrike, Master of Shadows, and Chapter Master of the Raven Guard, achieved legendary status through different means. He was stranded behind enemy lines on Targus 8 during a war against the Orcs, cut off from support and surrounded by millions of enemies. Rather than attempting to break out or waiting for rescue, Shrike led a guerrilla campaign that lasted over 2 years, sabotaging Orc installations, assassinating their leaders, and sowing chaos throughout their ranks. When he finally rejoined his chapter, Shrike had become a master of stealth warfare, his tactics refined by years of operating in impossible conditions. He rose to become chapter master of the Raven Guard and proved himself willing to embrace change, accepting the Primaris Marines and even undergoing the Rubicon Primaris himself. His ability to adapt, to function independently without support, and to turn desperate situations into victories through cunning rather than brute force marks him as exceptional even among Space Marines. Lamartz, Guardian of the Lost, holds unique status within the Blood Angels chapter. He leads the Death Company, those Blood Angels who have succumbed to the Black Rage and lost themselves in visions of their Primarch's death. What makes Lamartz extraordinary is that he himself suffers from the Black Rage, yet he has retained enough control to lead rather than simply rage mindlessly into battle. He is the only known Blood Angel to achieve this level of mastery over the curse that should completely consume him. His existence proves that even the Black Rage can be fought, that willpower and determination can maintain identity even in the face of madness. Lamartz inspires not just through his combat prowess, but through his very existence, showing that the Blood Angel's curse is not absolutely inevitable, that control is possible even in the darkest circumstances. He pays a terrible price for this control. He must constantly fight the rage within himself, maintaining sanity through sheer effort. But his service to his chapter is invaluable. Mephiston, Chief Librarian of the Blood Angels, achieved legendary status through transformation rather than longevity. He was once a simple Blood Angel named Calistarius, who succumbed to the Red Thirst during battle, becoming lost to the bloodlust that cursed his chapter. But somehow, through sheer force of will, he fought his way back from the abyss. He emerged transformed, reborn as Mephiston, Lord of Death, the first Blood Angel to overcome the Red Thirst, rather than simply resisting it. His psychic powers are immense, making him one of the most powerful psychers in the entire Imperium. His physical prowess is extraordinary, even by Space Marine standards, his transformation having enhanced him beyond normal limits. But most importantly, his victory over the Red Thirst provides hope that the Blood Angel's curse might someday be conquered, that the flaws in their gene seed are not inevitable, but can be overcome through strength of will and spirit. Gabriel Seth, Chapter Master of the Flesh. Tiras provides an interesting contrast to other legendary warriors. His chapter is known for their barely controlled savagery, their gene seed so flawed that they struggle constantly with the Red Thirst and Black Rage. Seth leads them with grim determination, knowing that his chapter is slowly dying, that each generation sees more of their members succumb to madness, that the Flesh Tiras may not survive another few centuries. Despite this, Seth refuses to give in to despair. He leads his chapter in battle after battle, using their ferocity as a weapon while also working to find some way to slow their genetic degradation. his willingness to criticize other Blood Angels' successor chapters when he believes they're failing, his blunt honesty about his own chapter's problems, and his determination to serve until the very end all mark him as a leader of extraordinary character. These warriors, and others like them across the 1,000 chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, demonstrate that legendary status can be achieved in many ways. Some, like Grimnar, achieve it through long service and consistent excellence. Others, like Mephiston, achieve it through transformation and overcoming what should be insurmountable obstacles. Still others, like Shrike, achieve it through specific campaigns, where their skills and determination made the difference between victory and defeat. What unites all these legendary warriors is their impact that extends beyond just their personal achievements. They shape their chapters, influence imperial policy, inspire other warriors, and provide examples that resonate across the galaxy. Their names are known not just within their own chapters, but across the Imperium. They are consulted on matters of strategy, called upon in desperate situations, and held up as examples of what Space Marines can achieve when they dedicate themselves fully to the Emperor's service. The existence of multiple legendary warriors across different chapters also demonstrates something important. Legend is achievable. It's not reserved for a tiny handful of the most ancient or most skilled. Any Space Marine, through dedication, skill, and the fortune to survive long enough, can potentially achieve legendary status. This possibility inspires younger warriors, giving them examples to emulate and goals to strive toward. But these legends also serve as reminders that greatness comes with costs. Each of these warriors has paid prices similar to those borne by Dante, Bjorn, Sigismund, and Calgar. They carry burdens, harbor scars, both physical and psychological, and serve in the face of challenges that would break lesser beings. They are human enough to feel the weight of their service, yet superhuman enough to continue bearing it, finding in duty and faith the strength necessary to keep fighting. The question that cannot be definitively answered after examining the lives, achievements, and legacies of these extraordinary warriors, we arrive at the question that motivated this entire exploration. Who is the most legendary Space Marine in Warhammer 40,000 history? It's a question that fans have debated endlessly, that has sparked countless forum discussions and heated arguments. And perhaps the most honest answer is, there is no single definitive answer. Each of the warriors we've examined has legitimate claims to that supreme title. Commander Dante has served longer than any other active Space Marine, his 1,500 years of service unmatched by anyone not entombed in a dreadnought. He has won countless battles, inspired billions, and continues to lead, despite a burden that would have crushed anyone else. The case for Dante rests on sustained excellence over an incomprehensible span of time. He has been Chapter Master for over 1,100 years, meaning he has led the Blood Angels longer than most chapters have existed. He has fought in more campaigns than most Chapter Masters will see in their entire tenure. His tactical decisions have saved billions of lives. His personal combat record is beyond counting. And perhaps most importantly, he has maintained his sanity, his tactical acumen, and his dedication to duty, despite the crushing weight of 15 centuries of warfare and loss. When Imperial citizens pray for salvation, when they imagine the Emperor's angels descending to save them, they are often thinking of figures like Dante, the golden warrior with the death mask, descending on wings of fire to smite the enemies of humanity. This image has become archetypal in Imperial culture. Dante doesn't just represent the Blood Angels, he represents the ideal of what a Space Marine should be: noble, powerful, unwavering in duty, and absolutely committed to protecting humanity. But then there's Bjorn the Fell-Handed, whose claim to legendary status rests on entirely different grounds. Bjorn is not just old, he is ancient beyond measure, a living bridge to the Imperium's founding. He fought beside the Emperor, he knew Leman Russ personally, He participated in the Great Crusade and survived the Horus Heresy. He represents genuine, unbroken continuity with the Age of Legends, when the Primarchs walked among their sons and the dream of a united humanity seemed achievable. Bjorn's importance transcends his personal combat record, impressive though it is. He is a living historical record, a primary source for events that most Imperial historians know only through fragmentary documents and oral traditions. When the Space Wolves need to know what Russ would have done, they can ask someone who actually knew the Primarch, who fought at his side, who understood his thinking. This makes Bjorn invaluable in ways that go beyond mere combat effectiveness. Moreover, Bjorn's 10,000 years of service dwarf even Dante's impressive longevity. While Dante has lived for 15 centuries, Bjorn has endured for 10 millennia. He has seen the entire history of the Imperium unfold. He has watched the slow decline from the heights of the Great Crusade to the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. He embodies the tragic arc of human history in the Warhammer universe. The fall from a golden age of expansion and hope to an era of desperate survival against impossible odds. The argument for Bjorn as the most legendary space marine is that no one else can match his historical significance. He is irreplaceable, unique, the last of his kind. When Bjorn finally falls, when even the Space Wolves' finest artificers can no longer maintain the ancient systems that sustain him, a direct link to the Imperium's founding will be lost forever. Every moment he continues to exist is precious. Every memory he shares, invaluable. Every piece of tactical advice, informed by 10,000 years of accumulated experience. Then, we must consider Sigismund, whose claim to legendary status rests primarily on sheer martial prowess and philosophical insight. Sigismund was, by most accounts, the finest swordsman in the entire Imperium during his lifetime. Even Primarchs acknowledged his skill. His defeat of enemy, champions during the Siege of Terra, his founding of the Black Templars, and his final duel with Abaddon all contribute to a legend built on personal excellence in combat. But Sigismund's legacy extends beyond his individual achievements. He founded a chapter that has embodied his philosophy for 10,000 years. The Black Templars, with their eternal crusade, their refusal to accept that the war can ever be won, their zealous faith and knightly traditions, all of this flows directly from Sigismund's vision. In this sense, Sigismund's influence on the Imperium continues long after his death, perpetuated by the warriors who follow his example. Sigismund also represents something important about the nature of legend. Sometimes a single defining characteristic, pursued to absolute perfection, is enough. He was not the oldest warrior, not the most experienced commander, not the keeper of ancient knowledge, but he was the absolute best at one crucial thing: swordsmanship, and he backed that skill with philosophical clarity about the nature of the war he fought. This combination of supreme martial skill and intellectual understanding made him legendary in ways that pure longevity or accumulated victories alone might not have achieved. The case for Sigismund rests on the idea that true mastery, the absolute perfection of a skill, combined with the vision to understand what that skill means in the larger context, creates a legend that transcends mortality. Sigismund died, but his legend lives on, perpetuated by an entire chapter dedicated to his ideals. In a sense, he achieved a form of immortality that those who merely survive cannot match. His ideas and example continue to shape the Imperium millennia after his death. Finally, there's Marneus Calgar, whose 28 volumes of recorded accomplishments represent perhaps the most consistently excellent career of any Space Marine chapter master. Calgar's legend is built not on extreme longevity or historical uniqueness or supreme dueling skill, but on reliable, sustained, multifaceted excellence. He excels at everything a chapter master should excel at: strategy, tactics, personal combat, leadership, administration, and adaptation. The argument for Calgar is that he represents the pinnacle of what a Space Marine can be, in the current era. He leads the Ultramarines, the most important chapter in the Imperium, the exemplar by which others are measured. He commands Ultramar, a realm that represents what the Imperium could be if it were governed with competence and vision. He has won victories against every major threat the Imperium faces: orcs, tyranids, chaos, necrons. He has adapted to the changing nature of warfare, even undergoing the dangerous Rubicon Primaris, to demonstrate that evolution is survival. Calgar's legendary status is also validated by Reboot Guilliman himself. When a Primarch returns after 10,000 years and not only confirms your position but elevates you further, that's perhaps the ultimate endorsement. Guilliman could have swept aside the current leadership and installed his own people. Instead, he recognized Calgar's worth and trusted him with even greater responsibility. This vote of confidence from one of the Emperor's own sons carries immense weight. The case for Calgar rests on the idea that legendary status should be measured by comprehensive excellence and impact on the current Imperium. He is not just historically significant, he is actively shaping the Imperium's future. His decisions affect the defense of entire sectors. His tactical innovations are studied across the galaxy. His example of crossing the Rubicon Primaris has influenced how other chapters approach the integration of Primaris Marines. He is not just a legend from the past, but a living, active force in the present. So who is the most legendary? The answer depends on what we value most. If we prioritize longevity and sustained excellence, Dante stands supreme. His 1,500 years of active service, unmatched by anyone not entombed in a dreadnought. If we value historical significance and continuity with the Imperium's founding, Bjorn's 10,000 years and his status as the last link to the Age of Legends makes him irreplaceable. If we value supreme martial skill combined with philosophical vision, Sigismund's mastery of combat and his clear-eyed understanding of the eternal nature of war makes him the exemplar. If we value comprehensive excellence and current impact, Calgar's consistent performance across every aspect of leadership makes him the ideal chapter master. Perhaps the real answer is that the Imperium needs all of them, and each represents a different facet of what legendary status means. Dante embodies endurance and sacrifice, showing that duty can sustain a warrior through literally anything. Bjorn embodies continuity and memory, proving that the past is not lost as long as someone remains to remember it. Sigismund embodies mastery and vision, demonstrating that perfection in one area, combined with philosophical clarity, can create a legend that transcends mortality. Calgar embodies excellence and adaptation, proving that comprehensive competence across all areas of leadership creates reliable greatness. The question of who is most legendary may ultimately be unanswerable because these warriors excel in different ways, achieve greatness through different paths, and contribute to the Imperium in different but equally valuable capacities. Trying to rank them is like trying to determine whether a master swordsman is more valuable than a brilliant strategist, or whether personal combat prowess matters more than the ability to inspire millions. The answer depends on the situation, the needs of the moment, and what we value most in our heroes. What we can say with certainty is that all four of these warriors, Dante, Bjorn, Sigismund, and Calgar, have earned their legendary status through extraordinary service, exceptional achievement, and the willingness to pay prices that would break lesser beings. They represent the very best of what the Adeptus Astartes can produce, the pinnacle of Space Marine capability and dedication. They are legends, not through propaganda or exaggeration, but through genuine, documented excellence sustained over timeframes that most people cannot even conceptualize. And perhaps that's the point. Perhaps the question, who is most legendary, is less important than understanding what makes someone legendary at all. What qualities and achievements elevate a warrior from merely excellent to truly great? What prices are paid for greatness? And what these legends contribute to the Imperium they serve? By examining multiple legendary warriors, rather than fixating on a single supreme example, we gain a richer understanding of what heroism looks like in the grim darkness of the far future. The debate will continue, as it should. Fans will argue for their favorites, citing specific achievements, comparing tactical records, weighing longevity against historical significance, against combat prowess, against current relevance. And that debate itself serves a purpose, keeping these legends alive in discussion and thought, ensuring that their examples continue to inspire even as the Imperium grinds forward through its eternal war. Legacy and inspiration. Why these legends matter. In the grim darkness of the far future, where the average Imperial citizen lives a life of grinding labor in conditions that would horrify us, where ignorance is enforced as policy and hope is a scarce commodity, the legends of Space Marines serve a crucial function. They are not just military assets, not just powerful warriors who win battles. They are symbols, stories, inspirations that lift the human spirit and provide meaning in an otherwise meaningless existence. Consider what it means to an Imperial Guard soldier, pressed into service from a hive world, given a laser gun and minimal training, then shipped across the galaxy to fight enemies they can barely comprehend. That soldier faces horrors that would drive most people mad. Tyrannid swarms that blot out the sun, orcs whose savagery knows no limits, chaos cultists who have given up their humanity for demonic power. The survival rate for Imperial Guard infantry is abysmal. Most will die in their first engagement, killed by enemies they never even saw. But that soldier has heard stories of Commander Dante, the golden angel who descends from the heavens to save the righteous. They have been told that when all seems lost, when the enemy is overwhelming and death seems certain, the Emperor's angels sometimes appear, and among them shines the Lord of Angels himself, his blade cleaving through enemies, his very presence turning the tide of battle. This story, whether they ever witness it personally or not, gives them a reason to stand their ground when every instinct screams to run. If the golden angel might come, then holding one, more minute, might make the difference. That belief saves lives and wins battles. The same principle applies to entire populations. When a world is under siege, when enemy forces threaten to overwhelm the defenders, when the planetary governor must ask his people to sacrifice everything in the planet's defense, the legends of Space Marines provide a framework for understanding what's being asked of them. The legends show that even superhuman warriors make tremendous sacrifices for duty, that service to the Imperium is worth any price, that standing against impossible odds is not futile but noble. These legends also serve to unify the incredibly diverse Imperium. Across 1 million worlds, speaking thousands of languages, following countless cultural traditions, Imperial citizens have very little in common, but they all know the stories of the Space Marines. A farmer on an agri-world and a hive worker in a forge city may have nothing else in common, but they both know about Commander Dante's defense of Armageddon or Marneus Calgar's stand against the Tyranids. These shared stories create a sense of common identity that helps hold the Imperium together despite forces that would tear it apart. For Space Marines themselves, these legends serve different but equally important functions. Young Space Marines, newly inducted into their chapters, need examples to emulate. They need to understand what they can potentially become if they dedicate themselves fully to their duty. When a scout of the Blood Angels learns about Dante's rise from the salt wastes of Baal Secundus to become the longest-serving chapter master, it shows them that greatness is achievable regardless of one's origins. When an ultramarine studies Calgar's campaigns, they learn practical lessons about tactics and leadership, while also seeing what comprehensive excellence looks like. Even for experienced Space Marines, these legends provide motivation and perspective. When a captain faces a particularly difficult decision, when casualties are mounting and victory seems distant, the example of legendary warriors reminds them that others have faced worse and prevailed. The knowledge that Sigismund fought as the Emperor's champion during the Siege of Terra, facing champion after champion in single combat while the fate of humanity hung in the balance, provides context for current struggles. If he could endure that, then current challenges, however severe, are bearable. For chapter masters and other senior leaders, the legends serve as both inspiration and cautionary tales. They show what peak performance looks like, but also illustrate the costs of achieving it. When a newly appointed chapter master takes up his position, understanding what Dante or Calgar accomplished provides both a goal to strive toward and a realistic assessment of how difficult the role truly is. The legends don't make the job easier, but they do provide examples of how to approach impossible challenges with dignity and competence. The legends also influence how Space Marines think about time and legacy. When a warrior knows his chapter has produced legends like Bjorn or Dante, warriors who have served for centuries or millennia, it changes how he thinks about his own service. 100 years of service, which would seem like an impossibly long military career by any normal standard, becomes merely a good start. The existence of these ancient warriors demonstrates that Space Marine service is not measured in normal human timeframes, that dedication to duty can span centuries, that the greatest contributions often come from accumulated experience rather than brief moments of glory. These legends also shape how Space Marines approach their curse and their limitations. For Blood Angels, Dante's mastery of the Red Thirst and Black Rage, maintained for 1500 years, provides hope that the curse can be controlled. Mephiston's conquest of the Red Thirst shows that even succumbing to the curse is not necessarily permanent. Lamarte's retention of identity, despite the Black Rage, demonstrates that will and determination can maintain selfhood even in the face of genetic doom. These examples are invaluable to warriors struggling with flaws in their gene seed, showing that the curse is not absolutely inevitable. Beyond the Imperium and the Space Marines themselves, these legends influence how other factions view humanity. When Xenos species encounter Space Marines and hear the legends surrounding figures like Bjorn or Sigismund, it affects their tactical calculations. An Orc war boss might think twice about attacking a world if he knows Commander Dante has arrived to lead its defense, not because he fears death, but because the legend suggests the fight will be harder and the casualties higher than attacking an easier target. An elder farseer, calculating whether to intervene in Imperial affairs, must factor in the possibility of facing legendary warriors whose tactical acumen matches or exceeds their own. Even Chaos forces, who have their own legendary figures, respect the legends of the Imperium. When Abaddon faced Sigismund in their final duel, he did so with full knowledge of who he was fighting, treating it as the momentous occasion it was, rather than just another battle. Chaos champions seeking to prove themselves often specifically target legendary Space Marines, viewing victory over such figures as the ultimate validation of their power. This means the legends draw enemy fire, becoming focal points for enemy attention that might otherwise be directed at more vulnerable targets. The stories that surround these legends also serve an important narrative function within the Imperium. In a civilization where most history is lost or distorted, where records are incomplete and truth is often obscured by propaganda or superstition, the legends of Space Marines provide relatively reliable anchor points. The Blood Angels carefully maintain records of Dante's campaigns. The Space Wolves preserve Bjorn's memories with religious devotion. The Ultramarines document Calgar's achievements in meticulous detail. These records, while certainly colored by the chapters that maintain them, are generally more accurate than most Imperial history. This means scholars, strategists, and leaders across the Imperium can study these legends not just for inspiration, but for practical, tactical, and strategic lessons. Calgar's defense of Macragge against Hive fleet behemoth is studied in military academies across the Imperium. Its lessons apply to defensive operations against Tyranid incursions. Dante's coordination of multiple chapters at Armageddon provides a model for how to manage coalition warfare when forces from different organizations must work together. Sigismund's philosophy about the eternal nature of war influences how the Imperium thinks about its strategic posture and long-term planning. The legends also serve psychological functions that go beyond simple inspiration. In a universe as dark and hopeless as Warhammer 40,000, where humanity is beset on all sides and slowly losing ground despite constant sacrifice, the existence of legendary warriors who continue to fight, despite knowing the odds, provides a template for how to maintain hope without delusion. These warriors don't pretend that victory is certain or that the war will end. They fight anyway, because fighting is worth doing even when ultimate triumph seems impossible. This acceptance of an unwinnable war without succumbing to despair is perhaps the most important lesson the legends teach. Sigismund's prophecy that there would be only war proved accurate, but his response was not to give up, but to crusade eternally. Dante's weariness with existence doesn't prevent him from continuing to lead with excellence. Bjorn's bitter recognition that the Imperium has declined doesn't stop him from defending it. These examples show that one can acknowledge the darkness without being consumed by it, that service remains meaningful even when the ultimate outcome is uncertain. For the Imperium's leaders, the legends provide both political tools and genuine guidance. A Lord Commander planning a campaign can invoke the example of Marneus Calgar to justify difficult decisions or inspire troops. A planetary governor facing rebellion can remind his people of Sigismund's defense of Terra to frame resistance in terms of honored tradition. An inquisitor investigating suspected heresy can point to Dante's long service to argue for the importance of vigilance and dedication. The legends are flexible enough to support many different arguments, while still providing genuine wisdom and inspiration. The multimedia nature of these legends also matters. They are not just dry historical records, but living stories told and retold, adapted to different audiences and purposes. To children in an imperial scholar, Dante might be presented as a golden hero who always saves the day, a simple figure of unambiguous heroism. To Imperial Guard officers, he might be presented as a tactical genius whose decisions show the value of careful planning and resource management. To Blood Angels neophytes, he might be presented as an embodiment of their chapter's virtues and a living example of mastering their curse. Each telling serves its purpose, while all point toward the same underlying reality, a warrior of extraordinary capability who has served with excellence for an impossibly long time. This multiplicity of interpretation actually strengthens the legends rather than weakening them. Because different people can draw different lessons from the same stories, the legends remain relevant across a wide range of contexts. A legendary warrior like Dante or Calgar can be simultaneously a religious figure to the faithful, a tactical genius to military professionals, a symbol of hope to civilians, and a practical example to space marines. This versatility makes the legends more powerful and more widely applicable than if they were one-dimensional figures. The legends also provide something increasingly rare in the 41st millennium: genuine heroes. In a universe where most victories are Pyrrhic at best, where every triumph costs blood and treasure that can never be fully repaid, where even the forces of order commit atrocities in the name of survival, the legendary Space Marines represent something approaching true heroism. They are not perfect. Bjorn is bitter and grumpy. Dante struggles with weariness and longing for death. Sigismund's zealotry led to an eternal crusade that has consumed countless lives. But they are genuinely trying to protect humanity, genuinely making sacrifices for others, genuinely devoted to something larger than themselves. This matters more than it might seem. In a setting where moral ambiguity is the norm, where the good guys regularly commit what would be considered war crimes in any just society, having figures who are unambiguously heroic provides a moral anchor. These legendary warriors remind both in-universe characters and real-world fans that even in the grim darkness of the far future, some things remain worth fighting for, some people remain worth protecting, and some ideals remain worth pursuing, even when perfection is impossible. Finally, these legends provide continuity and stability in a universe defined by chaos and change. The Imperium is slowly declining, yes, but it has been slowly declining for 10,000 years. Dante has been chapter master for 1100 of those years. Bjorn has been fighting for all 10,000. These figures, by their very continued existence, provide evidence that not everything is falling apart, that some things endure, that the forces of decay and entropy have not yet won. As long as these legends continue to fight, as long as their examples continue to inspire, there remains hope that the Imperium might yet survive whatever the galaxy throws at it. Conclusion. The Eternal Watch continues. In the end, perhaps the question of who is the most legendary space marine misses the point. The true significance of these warriors lies not in ranking them against each other, but in understanding what they represent collectively. Humanity's refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds, the power of duty and faith to sustain warriors through literally anything, and the possibility of excellence even in the darkest circumstances. Commander Dante continues his vigil, bearing 1,500 years of accumulated burden with undiminished excellence. Bjorn the Fell-Handed endures in his ancient dreadnought, 10,000 years of memory and experience, making him invaluable to his chapter and the Imperium. Sigismund's legacy lives on in the Black Templars, his eternal crusade continuing 10 millennia after his death. Marneus Calgar leads the Ultramarines with the same comprehensive excellence that has defined his entire career, his 28 volumes of accomplishments still growing with each campaign. These warriors, and others like them across the 1,000 chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, are the Imperium's truest treasures. They are proof that the Emperor's vision of enhanced humanity, defending itself against impossible threats, was not fantasy, but achievable reality. They demonstrate that duty and sacrifice are not empty words, but principles that can sustain warriors through centuries or millennia of warfare. They show that even in a universe as dark as Warhammer 40,000, heroes can exist and heroism can triumph. The galaxy continues to burn. New threats emerge with horrifying regularity. The forces of chaos grow stronger. The tyrannid hive fleets approach in ever greater numbers. The Necrons awaken from their ancient slumber, and countless other threats tear at the Imperium's borders. The war truly does go on without end, just as Sigismund prophesied all those millennia ago. But as long as warriors like Dante and Bjorn and Calgar continue to fight, as long as the legends they embody continue to inspire, humanity has a chance. These legends remind us why we love Warhammer 40,000, despite, or perhaps because of, its darkness. Yes, the setting is bleak. Yes, the Imperium is a fascist nightmare by any reasonable standard. Yes, the endless war grinds millions of people into dust every day. But within that darkness shine points of genuine light. Warriors who make real sacrifices for others. Leaders who genuinely care about those they protect. Heroes who embody virtues that transcend the corrupt civilization they defend. The most legendary space marines in Warhammer 40,000 history are legendary not because they are perfect, but because they are extraordinary in ways that matter. They excel at what they do. They inspire others to be better. They sacrifice more than should ever be asked of anyone. They endure when others would break. They maintain their humanity, or at least their essential character, despite everything the universe does to strip it away. They prove that greatness is possible, even in impossible circumstances. So whether you believe Dante is the most legendary for his unmatched longevity and sustained excellence, or Bjorn for his unique historical significance and 10,000 years of service, or Sigismund for his supreme martial skill and philosophical vision, or Calgar for his comprehensive competence and current impact, the important thing is that these legends exist. They are out there in the galaxy, fighting the endless war, bearing impossible burdens, maintaining the watch that never ends. And as long as they endure, as long as their examples inspire, as long as their deeds are remembered and recounted, there is hope. Not the naive hope of easy victory or final peace. Those are illusions that the grim darkness of the far future has long since stripped away. But the harder, more durable hope that comes from knowing that excellence is possible, that duty can sustain warriors through anything, that sacrifice is not meaningless, and that even in the darkest night, some lights continue to shine. The eternal watch continues, the legends fight on, and the Imperium endures, one hard-won victory at a time, sustained by warriors whose names will echo through history for as long as humanity survives. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, but there are also heroes. And sometimes, that makes all the difference. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the most legendary Space Marines in Warhammer 40,000 history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more lore explorations, character studies, and analyses of the grim darkness of the far future. What do you think? Who is the most legendary Space Marine? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, the Emperor protects.